Just kidding.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments. Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
going to call the meeting to order. And Mr. Carter, I think you have the honors.
I believe I do. Thank you. Join me in prayer. Father God, as we join in fellowship here and doing the work of the citizens of Alamance County, we seek wisdom, we seek knowledge to do the right thing, dear Lord, for our people. We represent them, we work for them, dear Father, and we are so aware of that each day. And we thank you, dear Lord, for their presence, their support. We thank you, dear Lord, for the opportunity to serve. We ask, dear Lord, that you bless the meditations of tonight that are before us. Bless those that have joined us here tonight and give them safety as they travel home after we're done. We ask all this, dear Lord, in the powerful and holy name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a quick privilege. I just broke like 2 major ribs and three others, 4 they say maybe. So if I don't get up and down and do all the photography and whatever, please forgive me in advance. But I'm going to do the county's work. Okay. We have the agenda, and Mr. Turner, I think you have a motion.
Just motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Agenda. We're not talking about consent.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, public comments. And looks like we have 6 people that have signed up. Michael Cole.
Hey, gentlemen.
Now, let me say before we start the clock, everybody has 3 minutes. We try to hold everybody to that, to be fair to everyone. And if I cut you off, I'm going to apologize in advance, but we're going to try to get through this agenda. Thanks so much.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the reevaluation. I live in a little 1,600 square foot condominium, and my reevaluation, you raised the value of my home 82%. I started immediately the appeals process. I went through 4 appeals. 3 of them were telephone appeals. The 4th one was an appeal right here in this room with 5 people sitting at the counter up here and 4 tax people sitting right here. And they heard me out. They were very agreeable to everything that I had to say. And when I got through, they said, we're not going to lower the value of your condo. We're going to leave it as it is because we think it's justified. I disagreed with them, but the chairman that was sitting there, he told me, he said, Mr. Cole, he said, I have one good news for you. He said, your tax rate will be revenue neutral. He said, so you can leave here with a good feeling. So I said, well, I guess that's the best I can do and best I can expect for. So then I read, and if my figures are wrong, I'm going to apologize in advance, but the only newspaper we have now is the Alamance News. And I subscribe to it, and that's my source of information for what goes on in your meetings. And all the writing that I was reading, it said that it was going to be, the tax rate was going to be revenue neutral. And then the school system comes up, they're $17 million short, was a figure that I read. And Mr. Lashley here, I'm quoting what I read. You push through more money, more tax dollars to take care of this short fund that the school system had and put it on the backs of us that living on a fixed income. I'm 77 years old. My income is Social Security. I'll let you figure out what that is. And so I retired from the school system. I could spend the rest of this night up here telling you about the waste in the school system and the things that I've seen. They waste $17 million. Trust me, Bill, they waste $17 million. And I went all the way through school with your dad, and we were friends after school. And I know how tight he was with $1 with the school system, and he agreed with me. And before my time runs out, what I'd like to have explained to me, here is my last year's tax bill from the county. Here is this year's tax bill. It's $192 more this year than it was last year. And the last thing the chairman told me is I was turning to leave from this dais, he said, Mr. Cole, your tax bill will be the same thing this year as it was last year. I wish somebody would explain that to me. I don't get it. I was told, I followed the process, Mr. Chairman. I followed the process by the letter. I came in here and stood right here and was told to my face that my tax bill would be the same. $192 is not the same.
We thank you.
I have one question. What's your house? Where is it?
I live in Burlington.
There you go. The Burlington, just want to tell my commissioners, the Burlington City Council raised your taxes 22%.
Well, I hadn't got to them yet. I'm coming here because the county raised mine 27%.
I'm gonna have to gavel this.
My fault, Mr. Cole, I apologize.
We are not allowed to respond to this public speakers at this point.
Right.
I will
We
afterwards.
are at the end of the meeting. We have county commissioners' comments.
Right.
And Mr. Lashley can address that issue at the end of the meeting. But I apologize if we start this back and forth.
I understand. I've never done this before, but I have been adamant
Well,
about
I'm
this
not
tax
fussing at you.
increase.
I'm not fussing at you, I'm fussing
Yeah.
at Bill Lashley.
Yes, and he should. But I was looking for where your home residence was, and I couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
okay.
Find this.
Burlington.
But I certainly will want to address your concerns at the end of the meeting, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir, we appreciate it. Okay,
Sorry about that, John.
no problem. Burnett Brown, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Not quite, but that's close enough.
Correct, please correct me.
It's Barrett Brown. I live 1562 Morgantown Road.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, other commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to speak in slightly different vein. I want to speak in terms of support for public school education. I have a resolution here. I think you've been forwarded it before. Do you have a copy of it? Do you have it? I have copies here if you. Sure. Tried to send it on. It's a resolution that is going around to county commissioners across the state. We're asking, and I'm also president of the Alamance branch of the NAACP. We're asking, and I'm speaking also in conjunction with the ABAE. We are asking that the county commissioners adopt a resolution to remind the legislatures that it is a constitutional right in North Carolina to have access to a free public education. And having a constitutional right is imbued upon the legislature to fund that right. They tell me that you don't tell people what you love, you show them your budget, and they'll tell you what you love. And so if we love our children, then I ask you to support the funding of the education, the funding of teachers at a living wage with an 18% increase in their salaries. We ask you that you consider that the public education is the largest investment that the state legislature makes. And having other organizations that are not public school educations vying for those same funds is a distraction from the children who need those resources, who don't have an opportunity to go to private school, who don't have the opportunity to go to parochial school, who don't have an opportunity to go to charter schools where they have to. They have different categories for students that they take. In fact, public school education has to educate the child that shows up at the door. And so the argument can be made that our investment in public school education, it should be a priority. And I thank you for considering this resolution, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
And we thank you. Mr. Vines, but you've never been before us before, have you? Henry Vines is a regular, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Paisley. I'm glad to see you back on income commission there, and I kept up with you, and we've thought about you and give you our thoughts and prayers.
Appreciate it.
First of all, I'd like to address, I didn't come, but I watched the last meeting, the price of eggs and what it has to do with the economy.
I thought she was gonna bring a chicken.
Well, they might not let me in the door with the chicken. But anyhow, you know, it's the same thing, price and demand. The reason eggs went so high was because the avian influenza was here. A lot of flocks were disposed of, eggs got short, so the prices got high. Same thing in the housing industry. You know, when it's short, it's gonna be higher. When the demand gets higher, or the supply gets higher than the demand, it's gonna go down. You know, and the prices will go down. But right now, the market is dictating, you know, what we have to do in setting values. As I said on the Board of Equalization, it's tough to, you know, to do this. The second thing I'd like to speak to you tonight is about the median deal. I think that Meridian, I'm sorry, the option 2, where it stays the same, they sell it, operate it on the same contract that Mr. Coble has in place. I don't think that anyone would have any objection to that. But when you start increasing the mileage out to 100 miles and start bringing in other counties' debris into our county to dispose of their problem, I think it's wrong. It's a good asset that we've got that we can use for our county and maybe even our surrounding counties. You know, we don't allow it, you know, outside county people to come into our county landfill because we don't want to fill our landfill up and shorten the life of it. So I hope tonight when y'all consider this that you will consider the option 2 of leaving everything the same if they want to operate this under the conditions. And when you talk about the study that's been done, and I think if I read it correctly, it was between 25 and 30 loads they're saying because they're going to increase the size of the trucks. Well, the size of the trucks tears up the roads even worse. And as stated, about 50 tons or so, 60 tons or so going in there now. That's 6-8 trucks a day versus 30 trucks a day. It's definitely going to be a big increase and a big impact on that neighborhood. So I just ask you to please leave it like it is and let them buy it and use it as it is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Medora Burke Skoll. And while you're approaching, my ink pen just ran out, so I'm pointing to my wife, asking her to give me one of the 17 ink pens she probably has in her purse.
You need to bring your pen. You can have mine.
Oh, she's got one right there.
It's in red. That's a teacher.
That's okay. Oh, it's worse than that. It's one of my campaign pens. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Medora Burke Skoll, 3673 Mebane Rogers Road. I'm here tonight as the Vice President of the Alamance Burlington Association of Educators and as the Education Committee Chair for the NAACP. I'm here to speak on the resolution that we sent you and that you have a copy of. There's a lot of whereases in there, and it's easy to lose the point of it. But the main point is we would like you, along with commissions from across the state of North Carolina, to light a fire under the General Assembly to pass a budget. As you know, they pass a budget every 2 years that is responsible for funding the bulk of public education in North Carolina. In addition to lighting a fire, asking them to hurry up and pass that budget, because they're a month and a half, 2 months behind schedule on it, we would like to ask that a couple things be pointed out to them and maybe included in the budget. So currently we're 32nd in the nation for teacher pay, but we are 46th in the nation for beginning teacher pay. And it's really hard to attract new educators to my profession. I speak before classes. We have a club, the Future Teachers of America. We can barely get kids to join that club because nobody wants to be an educator, because everyone's like, oh, you don't make any money. Oh, you have to have 2 jobs. Oh, and it's very hard to get kids to consider that as a career choice. Right now, North Carolina is graduating half of the education majors that we need to fill the vacancies in our schools, and that's miserable. The other main point is an expansion of early childhood education. Right now, 80% of North Carolina families report a lack of childcare as being a major budget issue in their households. 87%, and it's rare that we all agree on something, but 87% of North Carolinians report an expansion of early childhood education as one of their priorities. Right now, the only way to get into pre-K in Alamance County, because I just went through this with my youngest, is your child needs to have a developmental delay, some reason that they think that they won't be able to thrive in kindergarten, or you have to live below the poverty line. Thankfully, my child dove under the table and refused to speak for 30 minutes, so we got in. I didn't train her to do that. And the third thing is in there, and this is probably the most odious thing coming before the Senate and the House, is a proposal to lift the cap on using the Opportunity Scholarship for private education, right? Like right now there's an Opportunity Scholarship and it's income-based. So only low-income applicants can have an opportunity to use public dollars to go to a private institution, like a private school, which I already have some pretty major issues with, right? Like, we should not be paying for public school money to fund private schools. But what's before the legislature right now is lifting the income cap, meaning you can make $1 million and still apply for that scholarship to send your children to private school with public school dollars. So those are the things that are in the resolution. Those are the big take homes. Thank you for your time.
We thank you. Barry Joyce.
Give you a piece of paper here. Well, I won't be able to read it tonight, but you give you something to read when you go to bed.
Are you saying it's gonna make me go to sleep, Barry?
No, it should really wake you. You might not be able to sleep.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Let me give you one, Adam. Thank you very much. First of all, the first thing I want to say before I get into this is the state of North Carolina has no statutes that say that Alamance County has any obligation to give teacher supplements. Okay? It's not the taxpayers in Alamance County aren't by law required to give them. You are forcing the county taxpayers to pay for these supplements by voting them in. Okay? So, a couple of weeks back, there was an article in Alamance News about teacher supplements. The thing is they only put one column on there, the teacher supplements. Okay? They didn't put the principal supplements. They didn't put the assistant principal supplements. I don't know why, but if you look at this information I gave you, the complaint was that we were 22nd in the state in teacher supplements, at an average of almost $6,000 a teacher. Well, that's not too bad. All right. Then we go over to principal supplements at $17,000 as a average. Then we go to assistant principals that are $10,000 averages. Okay? So our assistant principals and our principals are in the top 10 in the state. But our teachers are 23rd. Okay? I'd like an explanation for that. I don't think there is one. The scary thing is that this board right here put millions of dollars into the school system's budget for supplements, and you don't even know what you put in. You can't tell me what the part of that budget went to supplements. You don't even know. You voted in millions of dollars of taxpayers' money, and you don't even know how much you voted in. That's bad. That's terrible. You're talking about being fiduciary responsible. You're talking about the finance guy losing $2 million. You'd be upset. I'm upset that you don't know where millions of dollars is in supplement money. That's not very fiduciary responsible to the taxpayers in this county. Very, very bad. The next thing is you're calling this a teacher supplement. Well, let me give you a little idea, folks. This is not a teacher supplement. Okay? In the central office, county principals and assistant principals, which are administrative people, there are 90 of them. They get the highest paid supplements, not the teachers. There's only one group at the central office that doesn't get more than the teachers. That's a little group called coordinators, and there's 5 of them. Okay? There's 15 directors. They're starting as 11%. This is based on last year, okay? So the teachers start at 10.5. All right? The executive directors start at 12%. The chiefs of blank, that's 3 minutes. Are you kidding me? It's 13%. And the deputy superintendent is 16%.
Barry, you know I'm gonna have to.
I know, but this is some awfully important information, and I spent a lot of time on it. But I'll come back next time you have a meeting, but this is some information for you to look at. This is not a teacher supplement. This is a school supplement given mostly out in higher portions to administration.
I'm gonna have to stop you. I
Okay.
apologize.
Thank you.
I assure you, we will look at your materials, as we will everybody's materials. Thank you. Leonard Harrison. Good to see you again, sir.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Leonard Harrison. I'm running for Congress for a reason. The reason I'm running for Congress is I'm fed up with the narrative that's going throughout this country, left and right, by the left. And it is amazing to me that we find out in our own community, again and again, we're watching the left seep in and do everything they can to undermine the kids in the community that we have. Our library, our main library, where our kids go to get their information, up front and personal, they've decided that they're going to make sure that they change this community. White fragility. It's a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. These behaviors in turn function to reinstate white racial equilibrium. We have that up on right up in front and personal at our library. In addition, intersectionality is the lens through which we can see where power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersections, by Kim Crenshaw. Then we have racial equity. In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. Well, the narrative that this is a racist country is absolutely incorrect. I have done everything I can in my life. I'm an individual who has served his country. I've served side by side with African Americans, Filipinos, Hispanics, you name it, I've done it. In addition, I've rescued thousands of people, about 70% low-income African Americans. I've given a kidney to an African American, and I've raised children in our foster care system and adopted a child who was a person of color. I am fed up, no matter what level this nation is, that we have a narrative going that we allow government agencies go unchecked and allow DEI to come in left and right and make sure that they can tell our children, this is not the place you want to be. This is a racist society that we're in. If they went down there and they put something that was racist in the other direction, if the KKK had their little board up, I would stand just as tall, just as loud, and just as furious. We have a great nation. We have more rights protected by our Constitution than any nation on the planet. And we have a board that's about to be put together at the library where they're going to appoint more people just like this to go in and question what kind of a country we're living in and make sure that they can push it in that direction. And I think that we need to stand up, stand tall, and say we actually stand for something and teach these kids what we actually have the opportunity to have every day. And it just absolutely infuriates me that it's even in question. Because yes, this country's made mistakes, but this is by far not a racist country.
And we thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda.
Chairman, I do have a question about one of the items on the consent agenda. 5B is the one I'm concerned about. Not so much concerned, just have a few questions.
Are you making a motion to
Yes, I make a
remove that
motion that
from
we
the?
just pull it off the consent agenda and just speak about it, talk about it, and find out what it's all about.
Let's place it on the regular agenda then.
Yes, sir.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion as to that one motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. So 5B, we are putting on the regular agenda. And because that's gonna be very, very quick.
Should be.
Why don't we just put it as item number 1?
Okay.
And we'll proceed from there.
Mr. Chairman, I have a similar motion. I'd like to discuss 5A, 5C, and 5E that are on consent briefly.
That's A, C, and E.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
So, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we have moved A, B, C, and E to our regular agenda. As to the remainder of our consent agenda, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. All of you folks that are not in attendance but are in Zoom land, that just got rid of part of our agenda. That's a good thing. Okay.
Take 5A first.
Yeah. 5A is the fee update with the Public Health Department. Who's presenting that?
I think I saw,
We have
yes, here's
representation from the
Ms.
health
Rosso from
department.
Environmental
Oh,
Health
yes.
is here this
Becky
evening.
Rosso is here.
Tony's away this evening. He's
Okay.
taking his kid back to college. I spoke with him today, that's how I know this.
On his way back. And these are some environmental health fees, so.
And good to see you.
The right person.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. So I am here, we've brought before you some fees, and it's an amendment to our environmental health fee schedule, and it is to incorporate North Carolina General Statute, Session Law 2023-90. That is House Bill 628. So this is just a fee that will become effective September 1. It was passed July 10th, so it's quick turnaround for it to be effective. Do you have any questions about the fees?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions if I might, just for my clarification. I understand that these were caps for fees that citizens are charged when they get a permit from the Department of Health, is that right?
Correct.
And so these were passed by the General Assembly after we passed our budget, our budget that incorporated certain fees, right?
Correct.
And these 3 different areas are capped at fees lower than that we passed in our budget, is that right?
That's also correct.
Due
Yep.
to the General Assembly passing a cap.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
That was my only question.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Tell Tony you did an excellent job.
That was very easy. Thanks for making it that way.
And we're, by the way, a lot quicker than he would have been. All right, next will be 5B1, which is now 6 whatever. Budget amendment lottery fund.
You want me to start?
Who's presenting that? All right, you're first.
All right, so before you tonight, Commissioners, is a budget amendment that would request the county to reduce its budget by $16,114.80, and that's due to the closeout of a state lottery project. When we are notified by Alamance Burlington School System staff that a lottery project is complete, this county has 60 days in which to file that application. So we have filed that application, it has been approved by the state, and this is just to reduce our budget. If we do not do that within a 60-day time frame as far as filing that report, then we receive audit findings.
Very good explanation.
Mr. Lashley.
Yes, the only thing that I was really concerned about, and I think I spoke with you about this as well, is I just have a basic question, and then once I can get an answer to this question, I have two more.
Okay.
Which school board meeting was this approved by the school board for this lottery fund request to be placed on the consent agenda?
So
Do you know
I do not know that date.
Isn't it statutorily required?
Actually, according to the process that we received from DPI, it's that one of the leading agencies, whether that be the school board or county commissioners, takes the lead in filing that closing application. And for the 18 years that I have been with the county, it has been the county's responsibility to file that. So I'm not sure that we have ever really had seen school board approval before. We are filing that with the state. We're just following the guidance that DPI has given us on closing out those projects.
Sure. And that's makes perfect sense. I think it seems to be like a timing issue.
That's correct.
Do we know what capital projects were completed?
We do. So that capital project that was completed was, I believe, let me pull up the backup real quick. It was for replacing some exterior doors. The project application went in as one project, but there were actually 3 schools in which that took place. Bear with me just one moment. I can
Sure.
give you those locations.
Take your time.
That was at Graham Middle, Broadview, and Cummings. So there was a balance of the project at Graham Middle of $339.80, Broadview Middle $3,600, and at Cummings $12,175.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just make sure I had this. You just said Broadview and Graham Middle
Mhm.
and Cummins High School.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's on the breakout in the agenda.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And those funds, now that they have reverted back to the state, they are available to be reallocated to another project through the normal application process, which would be approved by the Board of Ed, coming to the Board of Commissioners for approval, and then filing with the state.
Don't want to throw you a curveball here, and I understand if you don't have these numbers in front of you. Can you tell me what the lottery fund account is once you put the 16K in it?
I don't have that
Not a
number with me
problem.
right now.
I didn't have that on my list of questions, but it just came to me. I'll make a motion that we accept.
All right, also, I note that there are some school board members here. Do you wish to be heard? You probably don't need to, but
No, sir, I don't think that's
All right.
necessary. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's again unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this, a comment, please. This brought to mind an item that I was alerted to this afternoon, and I wonder, seems like we found mold in 2 other schools, one of them being, I believe, was Cummings, and the other one Broadview, is that correct?
Newland and Andrews. Cummings.
Those are the 2
Those
that
are
are
the 2
getting
that
done
are
now,
already-
they found
Yes.
2 more, it said.
Yes, that was today, yes.
Andrews is finished.
Yes, and so is Newland. That's what I've been told.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item what was 5C, year-end designations.
That's me again.
That's the reason I was looking at it.
Commissioners, before you tonight, I am bringing a request for the county to designate $84,762.60. This is part of our normal year-end closeout. What this does is it will designate funds to be used during the fiscal year 23-24 budget. I can take a few minutes and go line item by line item to give explanations of that. If you'll recall, within our fiscal year 23-24 budget, it was voted on to use funds from the capital reserves fund to offset our CIP projects. What this would actually do, that I'm requesting, is to designate $1,479,223 in the general fund. So instead of transferring those funds out to then transfer them right back into the general fund, we just designate it, and then I can do a journal entry in fiscal year 23-24 to show the use of those funds. Within the next line item is a request to designate $150,407 for the ACC capital reserves. Those funds will be transferred at a later date to the capital reserve fund for ACC. There was an expense recorded in the original calculation for operating expenses. Those expenses did not occur, so in keeping with the Davenport model, this will transfer those funds to their capital reserve fund to be used for future capital projects. A request is made to designate $1,181,200 for the DSS Child Welfare / Cardinal. These are funds that we had originally received from Cardinal Innovations for the prevention of kids coming into custody, reunification support, kinship, licensure expansion, access to supports not covered by Medicaid, and for interim supports between the placements and placement disruptions. These funds will continue under VIA, but we are asking to designate those funds for DSS use. Legal, we're asking to designate $224,475.88. That would be for any ongoing lawsuit settlements that we would need to have. We would have those funds in a designated fund and then could use those out as needed. So we're not saying that we would expend anything at this time, it's just having those funds available.
And that's $424,000.
$424,000. It's a lot of numbers. So excuse me.
I thought you said 224.
I'm sorry, 424. I apologize.
I noted that both of our county attorneys kind of cringed when you read that.
I know. We're asking to designate $38,022.52 for ongoing maintenance CIP project. If I'm not mistaken, that's for a roof project that Buddy is working to finish up. And $3,734.11 for ongoing CIP projects at the parks. And then the last item that we're requesting to designate funds, $7,703.09 for a clerk of court for a jury system. That's going to be a software system that they are setting aside funds for.
So my understanding is that these were monies that were designated for last year's budget that we haven't fully spent.
That's correct.
But we're still trying to spend them on the items that they were allotted to, and so we're just moving it to this year.
That's correct.
So that we can spend them in this year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 5D was previously approved on the, under the consent agenda. 5E, the minutes from the August 7, 2023.
That's my request, Mr. Chairman. I just noticed that the minutes reflecting commissioner comments indicated that when we were talking about the airport, that the improvements to the airport runway and apron were connected with the economic development for the hangars space, and those are actually different improvements. I just didn't want to appear to state that that federal money was being used for those improvements, and that's not the case. So I just, with that amendment, I would move to approve the bill.
Second.
Any further discussion? With that amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Again, unanimous, and we appreciate the correction.
Yes, very nice.
Next item, and I'm just going straight down the presentation of other business. So this would have been 6A, It is now 6E, Library Committee appointments. We have a number of applications.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
We're trying to pick the ones out of this, and looking at these, we've got 2 reappointments, Paula Hedrick and Jessica Simmons. And I would like to recommend that in addition to her, we appoint Cheryl Sanford to
I'll second
the
that
3rd
motion.
seat.
Apologize. I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just want to make sure we have the names correct here. Can
Jessica
you-
Simmons,
Yes.
Paula Hedricks, and Cheryl Sanford.
Thank you.
All in favor of these 3 nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Again, unanimous. Thank you. And I want to thank everybody that applied. There were a number of really well-qualified applicants, but we only have 3 openings. So I want to say thanks to everyone. Noah Snyder. Mr. Snyder, would you please come forward? This young man, you're a 10th grader or you're a rising 11th grader?
I'm a 10th grader currently.
10th grader. Tell us about your school and this honor.
I go to Hallbridge in Saxville Hall. Yeah.
And how old are you?
I'm 15.
Excellent.
Got any more growth in him, he's gonna get tall.
I'm not asking your height. Tell me more about what you're studying. What do you like?
So, recently I decided that I think I want to be a doctor.
Nice.
So, I'm trying to get better, like, educational-wise, I guess. Just all around.
And you're obviously in 4-H.
Yeah.
What activities are you involved in with 4-H?
I do a lot of different things. I am a part of the club team is Snapdragons, and then I'm also part of the county council, which I was the vice president this year. And I recently did the I cooked steak for district and state, which was an interesting and fun event to do.
This gentleman will go to Raleigh this weekend, or this, which day would the presentation be? Do you know?
The conference begins Wednesday and concludes on Saturday. I'm not sure what day the youth delegation
But he will represent 4-H in Alamance County, all of Alamance County, as our representative. Quite an honor, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No, not really.
Live on a farm?
No.
Deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job.
Sir, we will see you and hear from you again. I guarantee you. You've got a lot on the ball, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck this weekend.
Do you need to have a photo with the board?
Yeah, what's that?
I think he has to have a photo as part of his qualifications to be the delegate.
May I make a request? Because of broken ribs, I really don't want to embarrass myself and go up and down there. Can you come up with us? Just come around to the corner.
You gonna stand up, John?
Yes, sir. Just pull this up. Now, we're gonna put you right here in front of the county seal.
Yeah. I'll slide in a little bit.
We'll get a little closer going in, guys.
Okay.
I think I got several.
Awesome. Robbie wants some too.
You will likely be in the Times News later this week.
See you down there.
Kansas School. Good to see you again.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for this opportunity for us to be here today to recognize a department within social services. So I am here tonight on behalf of Alamance County Child Support, which of course is within social services and located in the Human Services Building on Graham Hopedale Road. With me tonight, I have our program manager, Ms. LaPortia McCullough, our two supervisors from Child Support, Ms. Rebecca Hendry and Mr. Willie Smith. And so we are excited about August being Child Support Awareness. Commissioner Turner mentioned some of our events that we have completed over the last month. And we just ask that you recognize this month as Child Support Awareness Month for August of 2023.
Excuse me. Not only are we doing that, but we, as the county commissioners, are going to adopt a proclamation. And I'm not sure how, we'll probably have you guys just stand here and we'll stand if that's all right.
That will work.
But the proclamation itself reads, Child Support Awareness Month, and it's August, in this case, 2023. Would you like me to read it accurately?
Sure. Please.
Whereas children are entitled to financial support from their parents, and Alamance County continues to improve its efforts as child support collections, and whereas Alamance County Child Support Services is dedicated to serving families and children, and whereas in fiscal 22-23, over $10,500 million were collected in Alamance County providing support to children, and whereas children do not receive adequate financial and emotional support from their parents who do not. Most parents do, but those that do not provide financial and emotional support from their parents may experience greater difficulty in growing up to become happy, healthy, and productive adults. And whereas many concerned and dedicated judges, attorneys, clerks of court, sheriff's personnel, child support professionals work to establish and enforce child support orders for Alamance County's children, one of our most vital resources. And now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Alamance County Board of Commissioners, do hereby recognize August 2023 as Child Support Awareness Month in Alamance County. Presented this the 21st day of August 2023. And we thank you.
Thank you.
I did years of support with collections and all kinds of things as a private attorney. Your job is not easy, and we really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, can we, here, if I can stand?
Okay, that'll work.
You guys line up, and one of you hold the proclamation in front of you. All right, before you do anything, Board, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion? More discussion, that is, you guys are superheroes.
Thank you for everything you do for Alamance County, and your dedication is beyond.
All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank goodness, no opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you. Hey, Robbie, would you guys take a picture, please?
I'm gonna take one for that. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Oh, okay.
One more?
Turn away when he's the last one.
I'm just lead all the
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I have one more comment on this issue. I had my middle brother, I'm the oldest of three boys, was a child support enforcement officer in Orange County for many, many years. So I know that takes dedication. Okay, Dr. King, and it's so good to have you with us. We appreciate it. This is item number 6D, Public Safety Training Center, and Dr. King is the interim president of Alamance Community College, and we are so glad to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the board, for receiving us today. I'm quite excited about being in Alamance County for a short period of time, and I see that you've already made a lot of progress on moving forward in so many different categories and doing so many different things. So thank you for your vision, thank you for your commitment, and I look forward to sharing with you where we are on the Public Service Training Center at this particular point. If you look at this first slide, you'll see that it takes many, many people, many organizations to make things happen appropriately in our county and our state, and many of them are listed here, but there are really so many others that are involved as well. Two of my colleagues are here with me today. One, Mr. Tom Hartman, he does all the things to make sure that the buildings are built right and maintained. And then this lady over next to him, I think all of you know, Andrea Rollins, she makes sure she keeps me on the straight and narrow when it comes to finance. And
Now,
so
let me interrupt you there. She is a trader, used to work.
Well,
good to have you back.
It's good to see you, Adrian.
Mr. Chair, I'll have to admit, I am glad she was a trader because my job would be much more difficult without her. So thank you so much for sharing her with us. I think from my perspective, I'm so excited about what this Public Service Training Center will do for Alamance County and really this entire region. And I'm talking about a multi-county region perhaps, and maybe even a state region perhaps. The potential is here, and you're looking at two primary things, one of them being the law enforcement community itself. And I think just right off the bat, already, and I'll make this, is this kind of bragging a little bit, but it was announced this last week that we have the biggest VLET program in the state of North Carolina and all 58 community colleges. I'm really proud of our team for doing that. And we have a developing fire service training. We do well in that arena, but there's so much more that could be done. And so this is the beginning of this. You see just a quick overview here as an architect's insight. So we're looking at Green Level. We've met with the officials over at Green Level where this has been conceptualized and visualized from the very beginning. And then one of the first things that we're going to do is create a classroom administration building, or classrooms for fire training, classrooms for basic law enforcement, police officers' physical ability test, and physical training area to be shared by both fire and VLET. It is clear that I would not pass in any of those categories, but fortunately we have a lot of people, male and female, who go out and do this and do quite well. So making sure you have appropriate facilities for this purpose is very important. The administrative suite, storage, and so forth for the things that you have to do to carry on business. The Emergency Vehicles Operator Course driving pad is the first thing that you saw a while ago that came up on the screen. And quite frankly, it was initially planned to be 400 by 400. There's potential for it to go 500 by 400, which gives you really an opportunity to do it in the right way. I've just spent about 3 years developing one of these in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so I'm very pleased to see that you're taking the lead here in this part of the state as well. The enforcement, fire, and law enforcement training facilities will share a training tower out at the Green Level site. We call it a green or a clean tower. Now what that really means is there's going to be fire in it to where both sides can figure out what to do in those different emergency situations. But it's going to, if there is fire, then it's going to be on propane or natural gas, something of that nature. Won't be as dirty as what we'll call later the dirty tower. So at any rate, an outdoor pavilion and then potentially an indoor firing range. I will tell you right now that those 12 50-yard, that firing lanes in an indoor firing range will set you apart from the rest of North Carolina. it will set you apart and make this an attractive area. Now, why is that important to us? You know, as a college, well, we get paid basically off the things that we do to generate FTE. And so every student that we have, we earn a certain amount of FTE. And so the more of those students you have, the bigger your FTE to support your operations so you can continue to do a good job. So you'll see with some of the things that we've got here, this is where it's planned to be, out at the Green Level site. Many of you know that it comes off the realm of the Martin Marietta plant, that our aggregate area out there. I've been out there to look at that. You've got a nice operation out there, a nice opportunity to make great things happen in that part of the county. The people at Green Level, the mayor and the others that were out there, the leaders of Green Level, are excited about it. I think it can be something that will not only add to Alamance County proper, but significantly to the Green Level area and help you in another area in your county develop and grow to the degree that you might want to grow. So this is just a rough schematic. This is a Sandy, what's that road?
Sandy Cross.
Sandy Cross. I knew if I worked on it enough, I'd get it. Sandy Cross Road with good entry in there, and this plan will work very, very effectively. I just spent about $45 million on one of these things in Cumberland County before I left. So you've got a great plan here for the money you're putting into it, and I think the opportunities you look forward to are quite good. That's where one of the training buildings will be, and you know, coming into that particular facility, you'll see this is the classroom administration building. As you see up on the top of this graph, about 150 seats. And so both law enforcement and fire can be running simultaneously some significant training out there to get the work done that needs to be done as they replace people who are retiring from the profession, people who are leaving for other things, and people who are wanting to recertify in so many advanced areas of training as well. So it's not just the entry level, it's the advanced level that you're dealing with as well. About 150 seats in this place, and then that's not even counting what could be done out on the respective ranges that we're talking about. So you're talking about the potential of really bringing a lot of people into Alamance County, and some of them are going to want to spend the night here like I do. By the way, I noticed that we're supposed to tell you where our place of residence is. I live all over Alamance County. One day I'm in Mebane, one week I'm in Mebane, the next week I'm in Burlington, the next week I'm, who knows, I might be on the side of the road somewhere. But I'm telling you, you've got a great community that I've enjoyed so far. When we look at this 12 different sites, 50 meters long, and something that can keep the rounds of those weapons encapsulated and inside, it adds another element of safety to the training that these folks have to do. We are praying, and we would ask for your support to our General Assembly members who are on board with us to make sure they've got it in the state budget. Of course, the budget isn't over until completed until it's completed, but right now it's still in there. So we would encourage your support with our General Assembly members in keeping that in the budget, and then helping us complete really this wonderful, wonderful facility with that training center itself. And so the indoor firing range, they can do things from shoot at 50 yards to where they can do different scenarios moving forward or moving away from individuals that may be exchanging some kind of gunfire. So it gives them a protected area in which they can do things extraordinarily well versed and safe in the way that they will do that. I've had the privilege of talking with Sheriff Johnson and others about this. He's excited about it, and others, and I'm telling you, we're absolutely committed to it. So the overall schedule is this. I'm going to be a long gone and forgotten memory by the time it's finished. But what we're working really hard to do, you'll see in 2023, is do all the initial work that we need to do to pull this thing together. And we're trying to do everything within our power not to delay it by putting additional items in there that would delay us even further. So we're really pushing it hard. So we think that by December, or certainly in January, we'd be able to complete the pre-GMP, the public bidding phase, the permitting, and then site work would begin sometime in January is what our plan is at this point. And then from that, things just continue to fall in place as we look at doing this. So, you know, in terms of what the costs are, I ask our folks to just put it out there, all of it. And this is what it is. There's not a surprise in here. We'll have a final number in October as to what the final number is. And once that number comes in, that's a guaranteed number by the contractors and so forth. And so you'll see the classroom building, the fire training facilities, the site work on the EVOC driving pad. That's a big pad, by the way. Those things are expensive. And so, but you're creating something there that is so different than what others in the state have. All the planning and all the construction fees, design fees, that's about $2 million, $1,950,000 right there. Water and sewer infrastructure is about $500,000. Total project budget funding right now is $15,850,218. To the best of our knowledge and those that we're working with, in terms of the architects, in terms of the engineers, that's the best figure we can work with right now. I will tell you, when I was building the facility in Fayetteville, I never thought I'd say this to you, but we were having inflation rates sometimes from month to month of 28%, of 38%. One month it was almost 70%. About a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it's just been crazy. So the prices have gotten more expensive as time has gone on. The firing range is an alternative. That's the one we're asking you to support in addition to the state budget. Our federal partners, our federal legislators have in our federal budget that money as well. And quite frankly, if we were to get both, and I hope we do, you could put another range in there and a different series of activities that our law enforcement personnel unfortunately have to encounter day in and day out, and I think it would be something you'd really be proud of. One thing about it, with this facility right now, if you fund it, and as I know you have, but you continue to fund it and do the things that you're doing, you're going to have something that will set it apart from any other place, certainly in North Carolina, and quite frankly, counting many other colleges in the United States. Not many people have what you're building here. The Burlington site, I mentioned to you, I'm going to tell you about the Dirty Burn building. We can't really put this out there at the green level site because it would change the contract that we have right now, and that would throw us off another year and a half in terms of a delay, and then you deal with inflation again and all that kind of thing. We have felt like that's not the best thing to do. This is a 3-story, 4-level live fire training tower. They really put dirty fire in this one. I mean, it might be wood, or it might be grass, or it might be any number of things that they have to fight in multiple levels. It has a Class A burn building, bedrooms, burn rooms, and so forth, to where the fire personnel can go in and out of different folks, to include when the fire is burning, they go in and do the things that they do, and we have trained people that do that quite well. That is available through ACC, and everything that we do will run through ACC to make sure that we have the people necessary to afford the program in the long term, which is what we look at. And current status, we're underway with the discussions underway with the city of Burlington. They've agreed at this point, at least in conversations with them, with me, that they're going to do the infrastructure work, among other things, and we'd have to look at how to afford this. This is, we think we have monies hopefully identified, Andrea, before she passes out over there. But if not, we may have to get some help on that. But these are containers that they've put together, well together, reinforce them. They're very safe. They're used in a number of places, and they don't cost $14 million to put together like one I had in Fayetteville. So that will be a separate project from the green level site, because it will not delay us in getting the green level site done. If we were to put this onto the green level site, first of all, there are issues with respect to water. Burlington is willing to come in and work with us on water and other things, so it's the best of all elements. Not to mention, from an insurance perspective, the fire departments in Alamance County have got to be able to respond with certain numbers of people, because if they don't, the insurance commission, the insurance rates go up dramatically, and they may not be able to do it. So that's why it's wise to have some of these things in at least 2 different locations throughout your county. That's a short, fast talking way of telling you congratulations on being visionary enough to come up with this and to think about this. You could do nothing else other than just open the law enforcement part of this and do what we've asked you to do here and support. And you would be surprised at the number of people that are already coming in to this community, and that will come into this community to get the benefits of what you're going to be providing. I've told My good friend over there, I'm afraid he'll throw a rock at me here in a minute. If I'd have known you had as many great people at this college as I've encountered, I would have been on a raid up here a number of years ago to try to steal some of them from you, because I'm telling you, the law enforcement folks are outstanding. And so the input that I've already received, and quite frankly from surrounding residents, are saying, what are you guys doing in Alamance County? I'd like to take credit for it. I cannot. Dr. Gatewood and our Board of Trustees and certainly our staff have done a remarkable job with all of you and your respective staff members, and you are at a point now that it is really something special if we can just get over the finish line. So we're pushing as hard and as fast as we can trying to get this done. It'll be a vague memory. I hope to be invited back whenever you do the grand opening. I'd like to come back and see it, but the truth of the matter is you have something really special here, and I wanted to give you an update on that. I'd respond to any questions you might have, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to also acknowledge our sheriff is present. He has really encouraged and worked hard for this project, and he is present in the audience. And also mentioned Senator Galey, House Representatives Rydell and Ross, who have been extremely supportive with this and many other projects, and have helped fund, and again, as you alluded to, I talked to Ms. Galey this morning, and they're hoping to pass the statewide budget by the third week in September.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we don't have that luxury, nor do you. We all have to have ours before July 1st, but we appreciate what our legislative group, our law enforcement, our EMTs, everyone has done to support this project. I think it's going to make a major difference, not only to the county, and we're not having to send everybody all over to Kalamazoo, for lack of a better, to do training. We'll do it right here at home, save a ton of money, both in housing, motel, all kinds of things, but we'll be teaching other communities. We thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, I did have a couple of questions, if I might. Thank you, Dr. King, for being
Yes, sir.
here. And I can't claim any credit for this vision that happened before I got here, but I'm certainly supportive of this effort. It's helpful, obviously, to ACC in increasing its offerings. It's helpful to our friends at Green Level for their economic development. It's helpful for law enforcement to getting a pipeline for additional trainees as they come through that in all law enforcement areas in the county. Real quick, when you said that this program would increase FTEs, do you mean students?
Student FTEs, yes, sir.
And I really like you making that connection, because I think what you're saying is that in making this investment, it makes this program attractive to more students. As you already had mentioned, that we have a very strong BLET program, and this should increase it. That's really important to me, because not only is it going to increase the bottom line for ACC, but it also brings law enforcement, those interested in law enforcement, into our county. And as difficult it is to keep law enforcement to come to your particular organization, I think if more people come to the county, maybe they'll stay. And so I think that's an important point as well.
Thank you so much, sir, for recognizing that. And as you were making your comments, I thought about something else. All communities, certainly counties and states, look for stability in terms of its populace and safety and security. And so that's what you're really investing in here. You're guaranteeing not only the present but in the future to create a system whereby you have those people coming in and staying and being continuing to get training as time goes on, so that your communities are much safer and much more secure even than they are today. And as people like me get older and age out and retire, I failed at retirement for 3 times, so this is probably going to be it for me. But the point being is that you need people coming in to refill those pipelines and those positions, so that the safety of your communities are in fact guaranteed as the future unwinds. That's the beauty of what you have here. People have an opportunity to come into your community, even from other places, see the beauty of what you have to offer here and the opportunities that you have. I think it's going to do great things for you, not only in law enforcement and in fire rescue, but at the same time in other things in your county as well.
Thank you. And then the last thing I just wanted to point out, that I think we've got, Ms. Rollins may be able to talk about this, we've got the last tranche for bond funding for ACC coming up in about 8 weeks or so. that will fund the last portion of the available bond funds for ACC. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's September.
October 31st.
October 31st.
See, I actually remembered October. I was going to try to show off and tell you that, but she would have straightened me out if I'd been wrong. But the point being is that that's a very important date because the problem is any time we have any kind of a delay right now, it throws us off, and it's not just a matter of weeks or months. It could be years. That's part of the problem that I think we've already encountered to some degree. And you have a wonderful vision. You have a wonderful thing that you're looking at here to do in your county. And I think it's going to continue to even put you on the county more often than you already are. And you've got great things going. If you don't mind, I'd like to share just one quick thing, then I promise I'll be quiet. But it's to your points. I had one of my fellow presidents and I met last week. And he came in and told me about this area and would we be willing to help and work with him? And I said, of course. It's getting recognition and it's getting support from other places because they want to come to a place of excellence and a place of quality. And that's what you're planning here. That's what you're providing here. And any time that Sheriff Johnston and his colleagues can go out and have a renewed force coming into that to guarantee the safety and security of your community, I think it's a great thing, and we're just delighted to be a part of it as a college. Mr. Chair, thank you. Members of the board, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The tower, that's not going to be located on site. Did I misunderstand you?
You'll actually have two towers. You'll have one that is a multi-tower that is built of presumably concrete and reinforced steel, things like that. But it'll burn fire, but it's going to be probably gas oriented, that kind of thing. So we call it a clean tower. Okay. And so the law enforcement personnel, the fire personnel, EMS personnel, they can go in and out of those facilities and do the things that they train to do. The dirty one, which is over at the Burlington site, will be there and they'll burn as they do now. The dirty stuff.
So they'll still use that.
And they'll still use it. So you'll have things like high angle rescue, where you come out of 3 or 4 stories high, and you're trying to rescue somebody from either a manufacturing facility or a hotel or something like that. And they actually train on how to do that. And they take big boys like me or a dummy like me, and I mean a real dummy. I mean one that weighs about 200 pounds. And they're carrying that dummy out of that. Now, that's not a human being, but it is a mannequin, I guess is what you'd call it. And they actually practice on these things. So what it allows you to do is not only maneuver through all the smoke and heat and so forth that they train to do in the fire circumstance, but also anymore with fire rescue, EMS, and all those folks, law enforcement, you know, sometimes they're the first on the scene, sometimes they're not, but it gives them an opportunity to do the work in concert with each other so that they're safe as well. So it's a far more complex situation than it once was, but this gives you the flexibility to do everything from the dirty fires. By the way, we're looking at getting an aircraft over at the Burlington facility where they can practice on aircraft, putting out fires in aircraft and rescue and all that as well. So it's a pretty comprehensive program that you've envisioned here, and I think one that will set you apart.
Well, I know you said something that struck a nerve with me about this training facility and how all these folks are going to want to come here to be part of such an excellent facility, which I agree, but I just hope that we can really recruit law officers. I know City of Burlington did a good job with raising their pay for their city officers, and now they're got a solid staff, and we're short here in the county. And I saw in the news this morning that Austin, Texas is 800 officers short. Yeah. And some of their officers are having to come off patrol to answer the 911 calls. That's right. So, and that goes directly to their crime level as well. So I hope that we think about whenever we get this facility state-of-the-art, that we start paying our sheriff's departments state-of-the-art salaries.
I would agree. We had a similar conversation today on a report that we've asked for about the salaries of the people at Alamance Community College. Mm-hmm. And so it's a similar issue wherever you go, and people are going to vote with their feet. And sometimes if they have other opportunities, they'll take them. But to your point, and I think it's a wonderful point, it's literally a situation to where we've got to be even more aggressive at our recruiting activity, and we need to coordinate our activities with the sheriff's department, with the school systems and so forth, to do the things that there are a lot of people that still want to do this public service. And you've got a facility here now that will really give them an opportunity to come in and do it the right way the first time.
Well,
and I think that'll help the recruiting efforts.
Law enforcement's really took a hit everywhere you look at it, and they can't get there fast enough when people need them, but yet we can be real critical of them, and thank God for them because they run to it. They don't run away from it.
That's exactly
And I was in a restaurant today and had one waiter for everybody because nobody showed up. So that, you've seen that across everything, and it cannot be in law enforcement or we're going to risk everything because it's all connected, schools, everything.
I agree 100%. You couldn't be more right than what you just said. And that safety and security that we all rely on and count on is such that the only way we're going to do it is to stimulate the interest, imagination, and accessibility of people, young and old, that will come into that field. They don't do it for the money necessarily, but they've got to make a living for them and their families. And so the point being is that we've got to be far more creative in helping with that as a college. The high schools, we're going to connect with them as well to do that both in fire and in law enforcement. And quite frankly, there's a little place I used to live next to, well, still do, called Fort Bragg. A lot of people that come out of that thing, and they want to go into law enforcement.
They are the best part of a workforce that we can get our hands on.
They are.
So, thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Lashley, question?
Thank you for your time
Mr.
and
Carter.
coming in tonight.
Thank you.
I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Dr. King, I'm honored to serve on the Board of Trustees for the community college as well. And I know that we have a program coming up, which, if you would, take just a moment to explain that, and then we'll do a photo op with the commissioners showing support for the community college. And also want to add that part of my role there is to serve on the Building and Grounds Committee. And in that role, I have learned that there is a tremendous amount of interest in this program already across the state, to the degree that we already are having to look at the possibility of expanding this campus beyond where it is right now, planned to be. So
I think that means
more
good
good
things.
news for Green Level, more good news for Alamance Community College and Alamance County in general.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about my mercenary side, and I do have one of those.
Me too. Go ahead.
Our folks come first. And so we'll be the ones who will schedule that and provide that training and that education. And so we're going to collaborate with everybody else. So don't let me indicate for a moment that we're going to take second fiddle. Now, we're going to work with and we'll collaborate. You'll find many people in those classes together as we find them now. But I'll tell you what, we're pretty excited about what can happen for Alamance County and really the region, because it's really a regional thing. I mean, in terms of something that really goes south, I mean, you have people from all different counties coming in to help in all different jurisdictions. And so you've got something special here. I really encourage you to continue to support it. Alamance Day, that's August 25th. That's this coming Friday. And it's celebrating, and I'll tell you, they're sending things out today and have been for some time, that people all over the world that have gone to Alamance County or one of our supporters, they're asking them to take a picture where they are. I'm going to have to take a picture, evidently, in my eye doctor's chair on Friday, but I'm going to have one of those signs up there that they're going to put on social media. So we would encourage you to support that with us and celebrate it with us. You have a gem here in Alamance Community College. Just very quickly, our board meets tomorrow night for the first orientation. All the contracts have been written and signed and everything. A very aggressive process in getting your next president, and they're planning, and I think they'll make it, on having your next president named and to the State Board of Community Colleges in December, so that you'll have a new president in January.
I would like to tell you something. My son's a pretty recent veteran, and he's going to ACC now in welding, and I didn't know how that transition is not easy. And I thought, you're going to school? What the heck? I've never had to buy school supplies. He went from high school to Army. It was really great. And he come in and he said, you know, that place is really nice. It is not like what I thought, because I guess he was thinking high school. And he said, I've got the best, educators. He's just really has fit right in. And I'm just real thankful because he won't die if he knows I'm talking about him at this meeting. Oh, but
Thank
you know,
you.
I just really appreciate that because I think all guys and girls coming out of the service, if they want to use that GI Bill, they couldn't have a better place to go use it.
I would agree with you 100%. And I will tell you, you think I'm joking when I said rating you? I'm not. If I were still president down there, you've got some great people here doing some great things. And if you've not been out to that advanced manufacturing facility for welding and all that now, it is spectacular. It would surprise me if it's the best one I've seen. And I've worked in 2 different states that were pretty advanced in this stuff. It's the best one I've seen.
Well, he's
So-
invested because he's already bought a truck with a boom. Is that thing that goes up like that? And it's got all kind of stuff on it. So
Was he
he's-
airborne?
No, he was Bradley's Army. That's what
Okay.
she said. Army, nothing but Army. There's no other branches but Army.
As they say. Hoo-ah.
I'm kidding. They're all amazing. They're all amazing. Even the Navy.
Well, we even say that we'll take those Marines in every now and then.
I think they're
in
all
Fort
amazing.
Bragg.
God
We do.
bless
We
them.
love them all. Mr.
God
Chair,
bless
thank you so much.
Mr. Sheriff, make sure that you put a tail on his, if he starts looking at any of our personnel, just make an arrest.
I think you may have already been doing that. I'm not sure, but
We thank you so much.
thank you, sir.
Okay, we're gonna get a picture here, and for the commissioners, already have my yard sign in my yard, but there's a sign sitting right over here in the corner for each one of you to put in your yard to show support for ACC this next week.
We go hold his.
Yes. Y'all will stand down there and we'll stand up here.
Thank you, sir.
Very nice, thank you so much.
Bill Harrison, Dr. Bill Harrison.
How are you?
I was my
You're looking great.
superintendent. I was his board chair on the education. I love him. Him and Judy, they're amazing. Will is such an awesome lawyer. Good family.
Mr. King, thank you for being here.
Please tell him hello if you see him, because he's in the alligators and golf. It was a big joke. See you later.
Oh, yeah, those are mine. Please don't run off with those trapped.
Okay, I've been
They've been around for
threatened by
years.
at least 2 commissioners if we don't take a 10-minute break. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break.
I'm just gonna show you.
So you.
Order.
Okay, we are back in session.
Sounds like a great plan.
Okay, Mr. Stevens.
Good evening, Board. We are here tonight to discuss a couple of things. The first of which is going to be a request from Coble Sandrock to sell Coble Sandrock to Meridian Waste, and per the terms of the franchise that Coble currently has with the county has to approve the sale. So that's one item for the board to consider, and then also a proposal from Meridian Waste to adopt a new franchise with the county. And this is really not my item to present. It's just mine in so much as I helped to draft the proposed ordinance and negotiate the contract. So we have folks on hand tonight from both Coble's and from Meridian, and I think we're going to hear from the folks with Coble's first.
All right. Mr. Longus?
Nice to see you here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Good evening, members of the board. I want to thank you for having us before you tonight. I also want to thank the county attorney, the county manager, and their staff for putting together what I think is a very good packet before you as to what the items are for your consideration. These are pretty complicated matters, and I thought that the board has a very good packet prepared by the county staff that's logical and it's very complete. And again, I want to congratulate them on a job well done. Let's talk a little bit about where we are and why we're here tonight. If you remember back in the early spring before March, we looked at the county's new franchise ordinance for solid waste, and it's a two-pronged ordinance. The first prong was for you to make a decision, and you held a public hearing. At the time, Meridian Waste presented its credentials, if you would, presented its expertise and experience before you, and the board, after the public hearing, voted to approve Meridian as a qualified franchisee for the county. Now, that's not to mean it's exclusive. The other people can come in, obviously, under the county ordinance and apply, but you have that first step has been done by this board. The second step in March, if I remember correctly, was undertaken where Meridian presented its terms and conditions for what it would like to see in the franchise agreement by your solid waste ordinance to permit Meridian to be the franchisee of the Coble solid waste landfill. No action was taken at that time. So here we are tonight bringing up 2 points. And what I would like to suggest to you is that I think the first item of business before you should be the consideration of Meridian's waste application for a new franchise and the points that the county staff and Meridian staff have negotiated for this new franchise. Hopefully, I represent the Cobles, and for the record, my name is Frank Longest. I've been an attorney in Burlington for more than 50 years. My office is in Burlington, and I've known the Cobles for a number of years. Obviously, they're good people, good business people, good quality citizens, but they reached a point in their life where they would like not to have to spend time on the bulldozer and doing the gritty work of accepting solid waste trash and having to deal with the public as to what's acceptable and not acceptable. And so they would like to pass this gauntlet over to Meridian. Now, the Cobles have had a good business for a number of years, and they've been approached by a number of people to buy this business, both big and small. And the Cobles have refrained from undertaking to do that, and so Meridian knocked on the door. And they did their own due diligence to find out that the people from Meridian, like you determined, are good folks and are qualified and have their experience and expertise to run the landfill. they've been able to negotiate terms that we feel like is good for the Cobles and good for Meridian, and in essence, to be candid, good for Alamance County and its citizens. Now, if talking about the franchise terms, I will not go over all of those point by point, but you have seen those in your packet. The terms of the new franchise is basically for the life of the landfill, of course, subject to future expansion, subject to Meridian having to qualify and keep their franchise good standing with this county and with the state people as to the permitting. And to be blunt, the permitting is the toughest part of all, because that changes from time to time as to what the circumstances are, what the requirements are, and to be real blunt, it gets real expensive to comply. The Cobles would love not to have to keep spending the amount of money that they spend on compliance, because it is a diminishing return for them unless they decide to get larger, because they couldn't stay in the business with the regulatory requirements and expenses. That's what Meridian brings to the table. They have the ability to expand the current site, to put the money into that site for the expansion for the future, and they're going to offer you, it's before you, the term natural life of the landfill, subject to permitting, subject to the franchise. They have offered you a host fee of $1 per ton. Now, how you calculate that obviously can be interpreted two different ways, because as I understand it, Meridian's requested that they be able to have a minimum tonnage to continue to operate the landfill. Now, the confusing thing that may be for all of us, me included, is that you talk with the state, and the state's criteria is based upon a 365-day year. So when the state talks about tonnage, they're talking about every day. And they'll say, okay, you can have this amount of tonnage, but not everybody operates 365 days a year. Even Meridian's told you it plans on operating Monday through Friday and a half day on Saturday. So that means those days that they're operating, they're going to have to average more than the state would say the average per day is. So don't get confused on that. You've got to have that difference. You've got to show what the state says is the tonnage, and then you've got to have as a business model what Meridian's going to have to interpret that maximum tonnage on the number of days that they can operate Monday through Friday and half day on Saturday. Now, my math is not the best in the world as I get older. My wife tells me my budgeting is terrible now. But if you take the number of tons that Meridian says that they have to have, and you multiply that by $1 a ton that the county would get, you're talking about $219,000 plus a year that Meridian would be paying to Alamance County if they maxed out at the amount of money that they're planning on trying to expand this landfill in the future. Now, they've also offered you a guarantee, so to speak, and not to indulge upon or take away from Meridian's presentation, but my memory is that in the next year, on a prorated basis, they guarantee that they will pay under the franchise agreement with Alamance County $50,000. The next year it's $50,000 minimum. The next year it goes to $75,000, and then it escalates, and then it hits the amount of $100,000, if I remember correctly, which would go on as long as the landfill works. That goes into the Alamance County budget, your coffers that you collect. And so that's an outside source of income to this county that's derived from that solid waste landfill. Another benefit that I'll point out to you by having the Meridian operate the landfill is that that solid waste construction material is being provided as a service to Alamance County and the adjoining counties in the region, and that keeps that type of debris out of your landfill. And your landfill is a pretty expensive operation to operate. It doesn't make sense to put solid waste materials and debris in your landfill. It makes it stupid to be honest with you, because it costs so much to operate and maintain your landfill and keep it from leaking and keeping it compliant with regulations, that we're lucky in this county that we have a solid waste debris private landfill that can take away that burden from our Alamance County landfill. And so that's a benefit to you as commissioners. It's a benefit to us as the citizens of Alamance County. Now, I think we all know that progress is moving along in this area. Now, I'm talking about the area, I'm talking about Alamance County, I'm talking about Guilford County, I'm talking about Randolph. All of the ideas that are coming in with announcements of new industries, new jobs, all that requires more solid waste disposal and debris. It's got to go somewhere. We have the facility to do that. We can get the money from it at $1 a ton. We can have that landfill operating, which is profitable for the new Meridian people to expand it and keep it there as an asset. They can make money. Alamance County makes money, and we have a service to the community as a whole. It doesn't put debris into our expensive landfill. Now, let's talk a little bit about the traffic study. It's my understanding that you as commissioners didn't get the traffic study at the time of the last hearing for you to give consideration and review it and feel comfortable with that study. I'll let Meridian discuss that with you tonight. But my quick reading of the traffic study was that the traffic engineers in their analysis basically says that with the projections for 2023, 2024, 2025 through 2026, there will be some increased traffic, but that increased traffic will not cause a need for improvements on Foster Road, that's Foster Store Road, or any of those other roads that come into Foster Story Road, the intersections with Greensboro Chapel Highway, and then also the Kimesville Road, that their projections are, even if there's an increase in truck traffic, that the improvements are not going to be required to handle that, that the load factor of the road is way tolerable to handle these additional loads. Now, let's think a second. Now, Coble, at the present time, gets a lot of its loads from smaller trucks. A number of those trucks will be decreased in number with long truck haulers. Now, Mr. Coble tells me that these long trailer trucks can handle 25 to 30 tons. So if you look at the amount of maximum coverage for tonnage that Meridian wants, you're only talking about 20 more trucks potentially over the week. Now, subtract that number, in essence, the Coble Sandrock traffic will be reduced because Coble's not going to be in the Sandrock business anymore. So those trucks that currently go into the Sandrock portion of this landfill will be taken away, and the traffic analysis took that into account when it made its studies and made its recommendations to you. Now, the other thing I think is important is that Meridian has the financial wherewithal to keep this landfill going. It's going to take a lot of investment in the future to pay the expense of increased insurance, increased professional services, increased meeting of the accommodation of the state regulatory people. That's expensive, very expensive. And you talk about getting the engineers and the actual reports that are coming through, we're not talking about a small amount of money. We're talking large sums. Now, I'd like to introduce Mary O'Brien with Meridian. You've met her before, but she and her team can submit to you what I call Meridian's case for you to consider and approve Meridian's franchise application before the board.
Good evening, Chairman, fellow commissioners. Thanks for having me back. I think I have an electromagnetic field I was unaware of. glad we actually had the public safety training presentation prior to this. Because what I think it represents for Alamance County is one of the many, many changes you all are going through. And that's a wonderful change that's coming to the county. And I understand it's really easy to love a public safety training facility, and it might be a little bit more difficult to love a landfill, but I'm gonna try to explain to you tonight why I believe that the new proposed amended franchise is better for the county than the one that you have existing. So first of all, in regards to the change, we all know from previous meetings, we're looking at a new public safety center. We know we're looking at new schools. Your housing counts and permits are up. You've built incredible economic, commercial commerce centers, both retail and industrial. All that creates construction and demolition debris. And I do want to clarify for the record that this is solely a construction and demolition debris landfill. It will not take any MSW solid waste. It is not our intention to try to re-permit it as anything but a C&D, construction and demolition debris landfill. And as you build those facilities, that waste increases. And the proper disposal of that C&D waste is not an option, it's a law. You have to dispose of it in a proper C&D landfill or your significantly more expensive MSW landfill. We see the Coble landfill as a better option for the county for the management of that waste because it's not putting it on your $500,000 to $700,000 to $750,000 an acre construction for one acre cell of your landfill. We have MSW landfills in other areas. We know how much it costs, the engineering, the compliance, the leachate collection systems. You don't want to be putting wood, plastic, sheetrock, metal back into an MSW line site. It belongs.
If you will slow down just about, I think we understand that, but I'm not sure that everybody.
Maybe it's this.
That everybody understands the difference between the Coble landfill, which is construction debris, versus our expensive Alamance County landfill. Would you go into a little more detail there?
Sure. And we do have our landfill engineer who could probably give you a better, more in-depth, but simply what I will say is your MSW landfill is your household waste. What you're putting in your garbage can at your home, tonight's leftover dinner, your child's diapers, leftover pet food, whatever the case may be, that's MSW waste. Construction and demolition debris.
And that's our landfill.
That is the
we're
county's
paying
landfill,
for.
correct.
And it's required to be lined.
Yes,
and very, very expensive.
Yes, it has a much higher level of environmental compliance and construction and permitting costs associated with it due to the fact that the materials that go in it can have a stronger, more negative impact if they were to reach the groundwater. And that's why you have different levels of plastic and liners and different kinds of clays. This construction and demolition debris material, you're literally looking at it. That cloth material you're sitting on, that bench, that wall, that door, the plastic covering the lights, that's your construction and demolition debris that goes into the Coble site now and what we're proposing for Meridian Waste. So as we look and embrace this change, we're asking you to consider a new franchise for the site. And the reasons we think this new franchise is better is first and foremost the fact that the current franchise, while it may have a smaller geographic impact of 25 miles from the site, it also allows for 25 customers that are named from anywhere to come into the site. That means that customer can be north of us, a state south of us. They could potentially contract with the largest solid waste company in the country that operates in all 50 states. That waste currently is permitted by the franchise as well as the state of North Carolina to come into the Coble's landfill. We have committed to the county through the new franchise, which we think is significantly much more protective to the county, that the waste that Meridian would bring in under our new franchise would only come from North Carolina counties. And from our original request, we have reduced it 40% to 26 named counties in the franchise agreement that you're looking at tonight. In addition, we believe that the guaranteed host fee payment, because is beneficial financially to the county. As the Coble's attorney mentioned earlier, it's a tiered effect, because even though the current franchise and current permit allows for up to 600 tons per day, that doesn't happen overnight. It needs to be built. It takes time to build that business, to win those customers. So that's why it's a tiered process, but we want to make sure you know we're financially committed to the county, and whether we bring in that level of waste per our earned franchise fee or the county's earned franchise fee, we're going to guarantee a minimum every year that we're in operations. We certainly believe that over time, we're going to supersede the minimum of 100,000, but we're going to be there for you, so you can guarantee it, you can budget it, your citizens can count on it. Also, we think there's some really good things for the residents in addition to this extra financial impact. First of all, we would give all Alamance County residents who wish to do their own do-it-yourself projects, construction projects, landscaping projects, a discount on your disposal coming into that. You do need to show proof of residency. We don't want anyone else from a neighboring county benefiting on your behalf, but we would offer them a discount. We would also offer the county a discount on storm debris. If you have a hurricane, if you have an ice storm, that storm debris is allowed to come into our facility. We keep it out of your MSW expensive sales, and we would give you a discount based on your need to get rid of that volume quickly, safely, and in environmental compliance. We also guarantee that we would increase the insurance on the facility. We maintain a $5 million insurance policy for environmental issues. And that is what we bring to the table, and it's significantly more than what is currently there. In addition, we would meet all state financial closure and post-closure assurances. We have guaranteed that we would be an active and committed corporate citizen by doing our special events. I come hot off the press with an event that we did on Saturday at our Shotwell C&D landfill called our Summer Splash Bash. We hosted 617 guests. We fed over 560 hamburgers and hot dogs. And one of the most, I think, special things to me is that of that crowd, 225 people plus voluntarily took a hayride tour of our landfill facility. That's how interested they were in what we were doing and how amazed they were that we would invite the community to our facilities. They're facilities that we're very proud of, and we will do the same thing if we get the honor of owning and operating the Coble landfill. And then also as part of our franchise agreement, we have guaranteed that we would improve the landscaping on the road frontage and have litter control throughout our ownership of the site. And so as you consider this, and you consider the change that's happening, we see these as benefits, things that aren't already there in the existing franchise. Can we operate under the existing franchise? Sure, we can operate under it, but we think this is a better business deal for the county to adopt the new franchise agreement. You get more for the change that's coming. You actually get a return for the change, because no matter what, change is coming and additional tonnages are coming. It's permitted for 600 tons a day. It will come. We're asking you to do it with us. And I know that one of the biggest issues everyone is very concerned about is traffic. And we have our traffic engineer, we have our landfill engineer, and we're talking about a 52 truck a day difference, okay, between what's there now and what we're proposing if we max out the volume. Now, originally, our request was for 750 tons a day. We have backed that down at taking in your comments and considerations back to 600 tons per day. 52 additional trucks per day. When you look at the biggest employers in the county, Alamance County Schools is one of them. That's 26,000 teachers going to school on your roads every day. The Honda power equipment manufacturing facility, that's 800 trucks cars or trucks going to that one facility a day to work. We're talking about 52. Truly, it is minimalistic in the big scope of things. But in addition, what I wanted to do is through the chair, I wanted to ask Dr. Samuel Powell to join us because we believe that there are some alternative ways in the future, they're not here today, that will greatly benefit access to the Coble landfill as well as other large business entities in the state or in the county.
Thank you, Mary.
Dr. Powell, good to see you again, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Powell. I'm a resident here in the city of Burlington. And I come before you tonight at the request of the Mr. Chair. And I wanted to talk about transportation here in Alamance County. And I'm doing this representing just my own opinion. I'm not here as a representative of any group, just making comments that I would like to make as a citizen. And my background is that I served on the city council for 12 years, from 1985 to 97. I served as a county commissioner from 98 to 2002. And for the last 20 years, I've been a member of the Airport Authority here in Alamance County for the Burlington Alamance Airport. And that brings me into the transportation issue because on our books we have a southern bypass that's been planned now for 30 years. And it was put on hold for a number of reasons, but one of the big ones was that the airport was extending its runway. We went from 3,800 feet to 6,400 feet. So we increased the runway length. That footprint of where that runway went was in the area where they were planning the bypass. So the folks, planning all of this wanted to see what the airport was going to do to then see what effect that would have on the planned southern bypass. Well, last year, the city of Graham voted that they did not want the bypass coming through their residential areas on the south side of Graham. So their city council voted to oppose the planned bypass. So back in November, in addition to that, the Airport Authority decided that we wanted to change the approach end of our airport, which in the past has been on the southwest side. So most of the traffic would come in from the Greensboro side and then land there at the airport. We use a precision approach path indicator lighting system to bring those aircraft in. And that's fine for a small airport, but we're becoming more of a business airport now. So we're looking in the future to a more advanced lighting system that would give you a lower altitude or lower ceiling of the clouds. When it's bad weather, create a ceiling. And right now, airplanes can come down to about 300 feet. And Greensboro has 200 feet. So we would like to see that the advantage of having that system plus the safety. And that lighting system extends out from the end of the runway about 2,400 feet. And right now, the approach end of the runway would be over the village of Alamance. And you know that land falls way off. Those towers would be huge, plus Highway 62 comes across through there. So the FAA would want to move Highway 62 out so it's not in the approach end, and that would be very expensive. So the Airport Authority voted to shift, and instead of coming in with our approach lighting on the southwest side, we would come in on the northeast side. So we'd flip that around. The land over there is not developed. It's not way down. The towers would not have to be too tall. And we're doing our planning for the future of the airport right now. And we have suggested that we would have our approach on the northeast side. So what does that do? Well, if you look at the map there, there's a bow tie on there that represents the airport, and then the approach end on each, the approach which would be on each end of that airport. And the one on the northeast side is the one that we would like to propose, and that crosses right over where the where the southern bypass would be. So again, the southern bypass, as it's currently planned, is a problem. So we would like to suggest that, and I'm not on the TAC, but I think at some point we need to do some different planning to accommodate traffic. We need a bypass to go around the city at some point in the future, and we're not talking about next year, but we could be 20 years down the road. So it doesn't impact the Meridian project as much today, but we're talking about future growth potential and transportation issues here in the county. If we could make the southern bypass extend down past the village of Alamance and then go across and pick up 119 back up towards Mebane, it would allow for the southern bypass to be south of the greater Alamance, which right now is very difficult for us to get transportation south of the greater Alamance. And the Meridian project also is down there. The Meridian project's about 5 miles south of the village of Alamance, the Coble landfill. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Those of you that represent us on the TAC, I hope you'll take back, maybe a plan to take another look at our southern bypass, our transportation here in Alamance County. We possibly need better roads on the north side as well, but for sure we need to do something on the south side. And so transportation issues are a big thing, and we need to be taking a look at that. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
Well, this morning I talked to Senator Galey at length about this issue. I see not only with Meridian, that Meridian is just a small portion of this transportation issue, but Ms. Thompson and several have mentioned the increased traffic and so forth, and that is a major concern. If you're riding through Belmont and or community of Alamance, you have massive potential traffic issues. And so I think the southern bypass is certainly a credible answer to resolve all those issues. That's not on our agenda for today.
Yes.
But I really appreciate your bringing that to our attention. Senator Galey is going to address it. Nothing will happen to the southern bypass in this current agenda as far as the state is concerned. But now they're looking at it, and Mr. Archer, I think we're setting up a meeting with him within the next few weeks and so forth with DOT and so forth. So we're trying to resolve some of the many issues which in part will impact Coble and Meridian.
And on this map, I have a dashed red line that goes north of the airport, another section that's south of the airport, and these are not on anybody's plans, okay? Right. So this is just me drawing out a possible alignment for if we have a southern bypass. It could go over the lake. There's plenty of different ways that it could be done. And I didn't want to confuse anybody. This is just me drawing some dashed lines on a map. So this is not coming from any official group.
And we
But,
appreciate it.
But I think that it would give you an idea of what could be done. And you know, the city of Burlington put that sewer line all up and down the greater Alamance, and it serves the north bank. That sewer line could also serve the south bank. So we put it in, and we're serving only half of the area that it could be serving. So
Or
another
any
reason to take a look at doing something.
Any questions of Dr. Howell?
The last time I saw you, you was at the park and you was a soldier.
Yes.
It was what an amazing day. All the history. It was just battleground. I was out there with Steve Van Pelt. It was just amazing.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a member of the Sons of the
I know.
American Revolution.
That's
and
a big deal.
I enjoy, and
He was a big deal.
Chairman is too, but yeah, I enjoy getting out and we talk to all kinds of different groups.
I think there
and-
was a Rear Admiral out there also.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it was
Jay
just
Deloach.
awesome.
Yeah, very
Real
good.
honor to be around
Well,
him.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I think, Sam, you actually presented this idea to me, what, about 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Was it
I've been
December?
talking about it.
You've been talking about it a long time.
A long time, and I think the time is now that we really need to start maybe getting the state to take a look at it and our own engineers and people. And I think, you know, it's been on the books a long time, and I think we could say that the old plan is pretty much dead.
When you look at the growth in Chatham below us and the addition of VinFast and Wolfspeed, and you look at Toyota, which is just 17, I think I said at our last meeting, 17 miles down 62. I mean, you're there before you realize it. If you look at the pathways to get to those locations, they're coming right through Belmont and Alamance, from Alamance County. And having some way to get down there faster without creating congestion in those communities is gonna be an important feature for us, I believe.
And just as we grow, we have to deal with traffic right here in our own community. And, you know, we're laid out east to west, but we don't have as good a pattern for traffic north and south. And if we don't do something, we get gridlocked. And it's already getting pretty tough out there.
Well, I happen to also serve on that TAC committee you're talking about. And I brought that up at our last meeting this last week, and it's not on their radar right now.
No.
So I
That's
suggest
why
that
I'm-
we have
that's why I'm here.
presentation to them to talk about it as well, and Mr. Archer
Mm-hmm.
is interested in hearing more about your ideas.
So if they're waiting for a response from the airport, we'd be glad to give them one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Powell. So this is just an example of how we believe that some of the situations and concerns that you may have can be answered. We think they can be answered through routing. And we think that a lot of the questions you may have in regards to traffic in particular, if you have any, can be answered by our traffic engineer or our principal engineer if you have any. Please let me know. I will stand by. We're all ready to help clarify any questions you may have.
Well, just think about the amount of construction debris that will be created if we were to decide to build a road like that if the state works.
Mr. Turner, anything?
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, a few questions, and we may have to go around the room. I'm not sure. First of all, on traffic, the traffic study that we have from March is that not based on the assumption that the daily amount is 750 tons?
It is. Yeah, that was the decision to sorry, my name is Dave Mills with M&A Engineering. The 750 was the initial amount. That's what the report is based on.
Okay.
So the numbers that we were given earlier are based on the reduced, I think you said 52.
It's the 50. So I think in here it was like 63, 65. Okay, 65 a day. That goes down to 52 a day. And,
Correct.
And there's a term in your study called LOSA, level of service.
Correct.
A, which is, I understand, a little or no delay.
Correct.
A little or no delay standard, which is the lowest standard that you
Well, it's the highest standard.
Well,
Level of service
right,
A
that-
is like no restriction.
Right.
You're getting no delays in your trips where, from different intersections.
Okay.
So, level of service D is usually where you want to start making improvements, if you get that low.
Okay. So at 65 trips a day or trucks a day, there would be little or no delay. So that would be even less impactful with 52 trucks a day.
Oh, correct. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Hmm?
And I think the next question is probably for Mr. Stevens. What I want to focus on is what Meridian can do right now as a matter of right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if does Mr. Coble have the ability to allow Meridian to run his facility under his current franchise?
Yes, that's correct. The current Coble franchise is silent on contracting of the operation. Merely says it'll be owned by Coble and operated as Coble Sandrock, but it doesn't say who has to actually do the operation. So there's no restriction in the present franchise for contracting out of all the services provided.
Okay. And if I want to focus on that, well, the current tonnage for the Coble franchise is 600 tons a day.
Correct.
Based on that 365 average that Mr. Longus talked about.
That is correct.
The new plan would keep that amount.
That's correct.
All right. But as a matter of right, if Meridian were to just run Mr. Coble's operation, I want to focus on the 25 miles limit now, but then there's also a clause that would allow them 25, customers that they could allow at their own discretion and that could change at their own discretion, and we wouldn't have any say to control that, and that clause would allow them to contract with anybody, anywhere. Is that
Yes, that's
fair?
my understanding as well. Yes.
Okay. So, and the plan that Meridian is asking for curtails, it gets away with that, it does away with that 25, but both the 25 miles and the 25 number of customers, and instead creates a geographical limitation that is smaller than the geographical limitation that they brought before us last time.
That's correct. Yeah, it does away with what we'll call the grandfathered list of customers. And by the way, those customers can change at their discretion. So the number is 25, but the people on the list can change at any time. Does away with that, does away with the 25-mile limitation, and supplements, like you said, the geographic overlay.
All right. There's a, Mr. Bryan, there's a number on the fact sheet that you presented that the pollution liability insurance would be 500,000. I think in the contract it's 5 million. Is that just
Yes.
which?
I'm not used
which
to
is
typing
correct?
5 million.
Okay. And there's a clause in what you're proposing that would allow for Alamance County residents who are non-commercial users to get a 90% reduction in the fee.
No, it's a 10% reduction in the fee.
10% reduction in the fee.
Mhm.
Okay. What is the fee?
The fee is not yet set. We don't operate the landfill, so we don't know the true operating cost of the facility.
Okay.
It would be a posted fee at the entrance of the landfill.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carter,
I'm good.
Ms. Thompson, let me just, all right, currently with the 25, and I'll use the word customer, I understand that's not the term. They could go out of state, they could go anywhere they wanted to, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Under the
Yes.
current contract.
Correct.
So, but the Meridian contract reduces that to a geographic area.
That's correct. And there's no limitation on the size of the customer either. So I don't know who those customers are, but one could potentially be the United States government. And if that were one of the customers, then that would certainly expand the geographic footprint.
Then secondly, we talked about insurance, $5 million coverage. What is the coverage with Coble currently?
Currently, we have a bond in place with Coble for $500,000 for the same purpose.
So a much, much smaller imprint.
1/10, yes.
All right. What happens if Mr. Coble keeps the contract, if whatever, and he just shuts down, what happens to that current facility?
That's a great question. I think the franchise agreement is silent as to that. There's no mention of what happens if he terminates operation. But I know the state has a scheme in place for winding down operations of a landfill. He might be able to better speak to what that looks like. So I know there is a place for that regulation, but it's not in the county franchise.
But I do know that the new Meridian contract addresses that issue.
It does.
How is it addressed?
There's a scheme in place, again, through the state, and the insurance that they would maintain would be carried on through the life of the wind down process.
So we as a county wouldn't eventually potentially be stuck with cleaning up a landfill?
That's correct.
I think
Correct, we would not get stuck.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, what our franchise agreement offers is, in addition to the $5 million environmental liability protection that we would have as coverage over the site, we also would have closure financial assurance with the state, which is a bond, as well as post-closure financial assurance, which is a separate bond with the state. And what that means is that the state already has the guarantee of payment to close that landfill if we were just to vanish. And then also, all landfills have to be monitored after closure, and the post-closure bond, again, gives the state, if we were to vanish, the money to close that, so the county would not be stuck with that liability.
All right, if you take over the current Coble contract, or if we approve this new Meridian contract, either way, you can have, and I like the Cobles, I've known you guys forever, but you'll have a lot more personnel to inspect product that's coming in to your landfill and just a lot more coverage. Is that correct?
Yeah, what I will say to that is we will run it in compliance with every aspect of our permit. The permit is what's very, very valuable to us. And we operate other landfills within the state of North Carolina and other hauling operations. We cannot afford to get a bad name with North Carolina DEQ because, as you know, everything runs downhill. And we want to make sure that we maintain the highest level of compliance at this site as well as at every other site, whether it's in North Carolina, Virginia, or other states in which we operate our facilities. So yes, we will have cameras on our scales. We will have spotters on the landfill working face, making sure that we're only disposing of those materials that are authorized in construction and demolition debris. And if there is something such as a tire, something along that line that is not allowed, a white goods, that will get picked out, diverted from the waste stream, preferably sent back with whoever delivered it, but it would be handled appropriately.
As you well know, currently with our current landfill, we're having to drill test wells all over. It's a terribly expensive process. So any just guesstimation at the extension of our current landfill that's so expensive in longevity if we do or don't approve your contract?
Well, by diverting the waste from your landfill, if let's just say we were maxing out what the permit is for that facility right now, 219,000 tons a day. If it wasn't coming to us, and if it was going to the county MSW landfill, that rate of which you would fill up that cell would be significant. I don't have the exact calculations. I'm not sure if our engineer could do them real quick.
400,000 yards is, if that waste went to your line facility, you're gonna chew up roughly 400,000 yards additional a year.
Any guesstimation on cost savings to us as a county not filling up our current landfill? And that may be a very unfair question.
I'll do the best I can. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Michael Stubbs, registered professional engineer in about 10 or 12 states, including North Carolina. I serve as the president and principal engineer for Hodges, Harbin, Newberry, and Tribble. This is my 27th year in solid waste. So, order of magnitude, like Ms. O'Brien said, your line landfill facility, without looking at the numbers, is costing you about $500,000 to $750,000 per lined acre, and another $250,000 to $300,000 on the cap system on top. So you're just all in roughly $1 million an acre. You can only put so many tons in that bowl, right? And so those 219,000 tons we were just speaking of, those 219,000 tons are now being left available for municipal solid waste, the stuff under all our sinks, and the savings, it would be probably not in the best interest of the county to continue to put essentially an inert material. We're talking in construction demolition, we're talking wood, we're talking brick, we're talking concrete, we're talking dirt, we're talking sheetrock. To take that material that is generally inert by definition of construction demolition and placing it into a line facility that chews up the airspace when it doesn't need to is probably not good, prudent fiscal practice. Plus, the behavior of construction demolition waste is such that it's bulky. It doesn't compress very well. So you're going to get a density of significantly less volume of that construction demolition waste in your municipal solid waste landfill than you are with municipal solid waste. So in the landfill business, all that you really own is that unit of volume, and you want to put as many tons of volume in that unit. It makes prudent sense to not put materials in there that are one, bulky, and they don't need the liner system. These wastes are generally very inert by nature, hence the definition, hence the environmental protection. A construction demolition landfill per lined acre might cost $250,000 an acre on the bottom, $200,000 on top. So it's probably 50% more fiscally responsible to utilize a construction demolition landfill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we thank you. Ms. Thompson, do you have any questions? Mr. Lashley?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Just to point out a few discrepancies in your presentation. If I'm doing my math properly, 600 tons a day times 6 is 3,600 times 52. That's $187,000 a year max. I don't know who came up with the 219. That's a clever, but it's not anywhere close. Now, there's a couple of things that you've left out that is almost impossible for make a decision. How can I decide if your landfill is proper for Alamance County if you can't tell me how much you charge? Can Mr. Coble tell me how much he currently charges today? Because when I ask you that question is this particular material, regardless of what I've been told tonight, does not help Alamance County at all. I don't know how it's prudent to take other people's garbage from 20 counties away and stick it in my county. Have you ever heard of the snow camp mine? This is what I'm trying to stay away from. Because the reason why this is not going to work for Alamance County is Alamance County is only going to get $187,000 a year for this. I appreciate the thought, and I appreciate the $1 a ton, but another thing that's being failed to be mentioned here is Mr. Coble said in the meeting in March that he only did 50 tons per day. Even with your calculations of 600, that's a multiple of 12. So if your $500,000 insurance policy that he currently has doesn't even come close to bring it up to speed, the $5 million is helpful, but I don't think that the $5 million is going to come close to cleaning up anything that should go wrong out there, because I see things right now in my own school system that cost $2 million to clean a gymnasium. So I guess my question to you is unless you can tell me how much you charge per ton, there's no way I can tell and that this particular, because in our landfill, you couldn't bring any of this inert debris to my county and dump it in my landfill. You can't do that. That's not how we have it set up. Is that correct, gentlemen and ladies? Is that correct? Okay.
No.
It's not. Please explain yourself.
You've heard the discussion.
My understanding
I heard
is-
your discussion, sir, and that's why I'm asking. I want to ask you, why would you throw out a $219,000 number when it doesn't come close? I just walked you through the math, sir. 600 tons a day times 6 days is 3,600. Multiplied by 52 is $187,200. Doesn't come close to 219. And I don't understand why you think that is going to make a difference in Alamance County taxpayers, because we throw away that kind of money per day on our school system. So I'm just trying to put apples and apples here. I mean, I'm just going off all the things that you and your organization have told me. And the only thing I really want to get into this with you is if you cannot tell me how much you charge per ton, then how am I supposed to decide if it doesn't work for my landfill? Because I just got finished telling you, we're not going to 100 miles and bringing stuff and put it in our landfill. We don't do that. That would be stupid, to use your words. That'd be incredibly ignorant and not smart. Now, let's go back to your initial comments. This franchise is completely and totally different, based solely on the tonnage that's going to be increased and the radius that you're going to use. Now, my suggestion is if we were going to do this, it would be probably better off for our taxpayers if we put it in our landfill. Why? Because it's only going to be things that are in Alamance County, not 20 counties away, not to the Virginia border or the South Carolina border. That is not what we as a county should be doing. It's not a very smart way to go. Now, would you like to tell me how much it costs to close a landfill? Does anyone in your organization know how much it costs to landfill? I know that's your business, and I would think that you might know this.
Yes, we do.
How much does it cost to close a landfill?
I invite my landfill engineer
Thank
to
you.
address that question. And we can address the question of the calendar days.
Sure.
The state bases the life of the tonnage on a calendar year, which is 365 days
Sure.
in a calendar year.
Sure.
That's how we arrive at 219.
Well, I just used the times that you're going to be open. You can't take stuff in your landfill on Sundays, so I just decreased that day. And I know that you say you're only going to be open half day on Saturday, but I gave you credit for the whole day. That's how it came up with my numbers.
Thank you. But again, the state bases it on
Yes,
365
ma'am.
days.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So Commissioner Lashley, the rough closure cost for construction demolition, is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Construction demolition. You know, every site's a little different, but for ballpark numbers, let's just say in the $150,000 to $200,000 range per lined acre. I'm sorry, per acre, because the C&D is not
Per
lined,
acre.
but order of magnitude.
Okay, and how many acres are we talking about?
Ooh, the existing facility, Mr. Coble's about 75 acres or so, 80 acres. Maybe 100 acres, I'm sorry, I don't have that
100
number off
acres.
the top of my head.
All right. So roughly it's going to cost $12.5 million to close this facility if it happens.
Yes, sir, you're in the ballpark, trust in that, yes, you was.
Okay. I had never heard how much it costs to close a landfill. That's,
And actually, if I might interject just
Yes,
one
sir.
point. Those costs are required by the state
Yes, sir.
regulation to be updated annually by an engineer submitted to North Carolina DEQ, who approves that estimate.
Right.
And then the client, or the Meridian in this case, or Mr. Coble in this case, has to demonstrate what's known as financial assurance in the industry to prove to the state of North Carolina that if as Ms. O'Brien said, if they just vanished, that financial assurance instrument is enough to close the facility, your $12 million, let's say, and there's another element of that, to maintain that facility in the closed position for at least 30 years of what we call post-closure care. So, sorry to
thank you.
belabor the point.
No. I thank you for elaborating. Let's do some math here.
Mr. Lashley, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I came up with the 219 figure. I'm not an engineer or an expert or a mathematician,
Well,
but
someone in your organization used that same number.
Well-
So apparently you folks have been talking about it.
well, the figure I came up with and how I came up with it for the
Yes, sir.
county is 365 days times 600 tons, and you would get $1 per ton.
But you're
That's what I came out to $219,000 about, that you would max out that the county would get. Now, it's not going to be that way right away. It takes
Right.
time to build up,
Sure.
and it's going to have to be an expansion of that present facility to reach that level. But hopefully, we're not talking about 2 years or 3 years. We're talking about a lifetime of a facility, and the county gets its tonnage fee based upon the volume that goes in there,
Sure.
at $1 a ton.
Now do you understand my questioning? Why?
No, I don't understand how you got the math, because my math figure is different from
Well,
yours.
sir, I'll walk them through you, not a problem.
Well, I just gave you how I did mine.
365-day a presentation is not true. Your organization's not open on Sundays, so you have to subtract 52 of those
Wait a minute.
days, sir. That gives you 313 possible days of work. Now, elaborate a little further. You're only going to be open a half a day on Saturday.
Well, you're exactly correct at that approach, but the approach we have to use is a state approach. And as I mentioned earlier in my discussion with you, everything's based upon the state on a 365-day permit basis. That 600 tons doesn't have to come in every day. It could be 900 tons on a Monday, 900 tons on a Tuesday, 900 tons on a Wednesday, 900 tons on a Thursday, and still be in compliance with the state with the operating hours of 5.5 days.
Well, in your particular example you just used, that would be a whole lot more than 52 trucks, wouldn't you say?
Not at
Well,
25
to increase
to...
the tonnage, you're gonna have to increase the truck traffic. And then you're just telling me that 600 goes to 900, but yet you do it 4 days in a row. Wouldn't that be increased traffic on those 4 days that you chose?
It would be increased traffic based upon the figures I'm told that a tractor trailer truck would carry 25 to 30 tons each one. So if you multiplied or divided the 600 tons per day by the 30, you're only talking about 20 trucks a day. And as you saw the figures they had, they were talking about 52. So nobody's trying to disguise anything. It could be a lot less than 52.
And in your example, it could be more.
No.
On a particular Monday.
Oh, on a
900
Monday or
tons.
Tuesday, it could be if they were trying to get the state permit level correct.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood where you
Mr.
come
Lashley,
from.
may I ask a question?
Certainly.
Mr. Longus, if I understood what I read correctly, or the way I interpreted it, it's 600 tons a day, 365 days a year is the state allowance
That's the permit.
permitted. If you shorten the work week, then you can raise the average tons per day.
Correct.
On the 5.5 days you operate. So that raises the tonnage per day to a higher number to achieve the $219,000.
But the 219,000 in theory is the maximum that the
Right,
county would
maximum
get
number.
under the present permitting.
I just walked you through the math. It's not 219. I don't care how you cut it.
If you raise the average tonnage per day from 600, then meet the 600 tons a day. You take your 600 tons a day, divide it by the actual number, multiply that, and then divide it by the actual number of days, and you raise your tonnage per day.
Are you trying to
The days
make,
you're operating.
so in essence, you're telling me that there will be more than
Be
600
more
tons a
than
day?
if you
coming.
max it out, it'd be more than 600 tons a day.
So now you're gonna tell me that if I did 900 on Monday through Friday this week, and I did 900 Monday through Friday last week, you're gonna close this thing down for the last 4 days, or the last 5 days
We wouldn't be able
of
to do
the
that
month?
much, because it'd raise it over 600 tons a day.
Well, I'm just saying, so in essence, you're gonna say that if you actually do that 900 tons a day, it's his example, not mine.
I'm just
that-
pointing out how they got the math.
Well, what I'm saying is are you, with your math, you're telling me that landfill is gonna be closed 6 days a week because they've got their max. And if they go on for months and months and months, are they gonna close it for the last month because
They'd
they
have
met
to answer
the
that
top?
question. I
They
don't know the
possibly,
answer to that.
they possibly would have to. They possibly have. But I'll just tame this down until someone can tell me how much you currently get for per ton. I have no clue if a dollar's good or a dollar's bad. I'm just saying, I just don't have the determining factor for that. But I just don't understand why we as a board think this is a new franchise agreement, no matter how you cut it. Because I know Mr. Coble has been permitted by the state for 600 tons a day, and Mr. Coble owns that land. He has every right to pick and choose who he wants to operate his landfill. That's his right because he's the owner of the property. I just don't think it's very smart to take other people's garbage and dump in my county because these other counties, and I haven't even got to the compliance thing yet. No one here has told me what compliance is in place. So I don't know. So I know that something didn't come from Tennessee or the mountains and get dumped in your station, your waste station, I don't know what it's called, and then end up in my landfill. How would I be able to determine if that's been undertaken? How? There's no markings on this track to tell me exactly where it came from.
I'm sorry, we didn't include that, but we can speak to that. When a transfer trailer or truck comes, they are required to have a manifest of where that waste is delivered.
Perfect.
That is a signed, sealed, delivered document. And so we put our trust in what that manifest is. The hauler is responsible. If they lie, they're the ones who get in trouble with North Carolina DEQ.
Is there a penalty for this? If you were to find someone doing this, would you just say, hey, you no longer can bring your stuff, or would they actually be penalized for doing something?
Well, considering it would be a violation of the franchise to bring in out of state waste, and again, it would not just out of state. I believe what you'll find is in the franchise, it lists the 26 North Carolina counties of which we could potentially bring waste. And again, construction and demolition debris waste. At that point, we would not put our franchise or permit on the line after we have paid a significant sum of money for it.
Completely understand that, absolutely. I'm good, thank you.
All right, let me, before you step down, Mr. O'Brien, let me ask Mr. Stevens, our attorney, who helped draft this new contract, along with your folks. One, if we do not pass this, do not approve it, which limits debris coming into 26 counties only, nothing out of state. Mr. Colbert's contract allows him to bring in 25 customers. And I think one of your examples, Mr. Stevens, was if it was the federal government, we could be bringing in debris from any number of states.
That's
not just, so that would come tremendously, and Mr. Colbert can allow Meridian to run his current contract. So we'd be bringing in potentially debris from any number of states, not just the 26 counties. If we don't approve this contract, we would not have the increased $5 million coverage. I've read both contracts, and I read the one that was drawn by our previous attorney and Mr. Colwell signed. It's a terrible contract. It gives us, Alamance County, little or no protection. If you shut down the Coble facility, we're just holding an empty bag. And we, the county, Alamance County taxpayers, Henry Vines, you're gonna be paying for that cleanup. Whereas at least of $5 million plus the other bonding and whatever with the Meridian new contract, you won't have to pay that.
Mr. Paisley, have you thought about people who live in that community? Let's say take your example that something happens out there. Don't you think that the county has liable for people who live out there that say their life was impacted adversely because of some mistake or some accident? Don't you
I
think
don't
the
think
people?
Meridian's gonna allow.
But what I'm saying is the
other than
residents wouldn't sue
inert
Meridian, they would sue
debris.
us.
It's gonna be inert debris.
I
It's
understand.
not what we're spending millions of dollars for at our current Alamance County site.
Well, what I'm saying, sir, is just the opposite. How do you know? Because
Because they do inspections.
If we were
My
going to,
dad was a tractor and trailer driver for years, and that was his livelihood. And if you don't comply with the, what was the term you used? Manifest. He's gonna lose, the driver's gonna lose his license. The company is gonna be in major non-compliance and penalties. That's how you know. That's why they have, potentially talking about the cameras and the inspections and the scales. You start bringing in what goes into our current Alamance County lined facility, and you put that out there, they're gonna have massive issues.
well, I think that the people at our landfill would probably determine if they wanted this particular customer to come in to dump that inert matter in there. My question to you, sir, is this: how do you know? This is an opportunity. This is something that the county taxpayer should understand here. If we're going to take this stuff from 20 counties away, don't you think they should pay a premium to dump it in our landfill? A premium, not just the way it's always been. A premium to take this, because we're doing them a favor. They're not doing us any favors here.
do you put a penalty on Honda Motor if
We're
they
not
make a
talking about
problem?
Honda, Mr. Paisley, we're talking about Meridian.
We're
Now, if
talking
you wanna
about
talk-
any industry coming in the city.
Well, Honda's already done their due diligence. I'm sure there was a traffic study when that one came out on 119. We're
Sure.
talking about Meridian. And I'm talking about the debris that they're gonna dump in my county. I'm just saying is, if we're gonna allow them to do that, they should pay a premium because we're providing a service for them that they can't get no place else. They can't. So why are we actually making it so that we don't even know? If they were to tell us how much they were charging per ton,
Do you want
we
to
could
answer
sit.
that question?
Let me finish.
All right.
If we were to do this, if they were to tell us how much they were gonna charge per ton, we could do the math. And then we could also go to Richard, the man who runs our landfill, and ask him, how much would you charge if you had to take this from Alamance County? We're not talking about 100 miles away. How much would you charge? What kind of premium would you charge someone to bring this stuff into our landfill?
Mr. Stevens, can we get into price fixing?
Well, I don't want
That's not
to
what
necessarily
I'm
answer
saying.
that question.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that how do you know? Anyone in this room knows, tell me. How do you know unless you can find out how much you get charged per ton? How?
Sir, I can answer. They take any material and they of any category up to the worst kind to our line landfill, and they charge one price per ton. So these kind of landfills are designed, should be cheaper for the customer because it's cheaper for them to operate because it's an all the extra steps that DEQ. A few months ago we talked about LCID landfills, which were even more inert, like stump dumps. Remember the stump dump? Those tend to charge even less, and the market bears that out usually. So at our landfill, it's one price and it goes in all in the line. So if it's inert material, they're paying that premium price to put it in a line landfill. Just to give you some clarity on that particular subject, I wanted to make sure you got that.
Thank you, Bruce. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
And Mr. Lashley, as far as the tonnage per day, I just want to point out again that limitation is 600 per day on average, even as set by the state under current permit. So let's say we took Meridian out of this equation.
Yes, sir.
And the Cobles decided they wanted to operate at full capacity. They could do that. They could solicit customers from anywhere geographically outside that 25-mile range as long as they were on that grandfathered list. So we are presently in a place where that could happen overnight, even without an ownership
Regardless.
change. Yeah, so that's kind of the status quo at this point. And like we've kind of said before, 600 per day on average is the limiting factor in all of this. That is the overriding consideration that already exists as the status quo. It's just a matter of who's doing the operation.
Right. And I completely understand that Mr. Coble has all right to choose whoever he wants to operate his landfill.
Right.
And that's the beauty of owning it. I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And I have nothing else. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. Mr. Stevens, do you have the proposed franchise agreement handy? Could you turn to page 5 of that?
I do, and I will.
There's been some talk here about enforcement of the franchise agreement. Should it be granted? And there was a provision here, paragraph 18, material terms, that I was happy to see, and I just thought it might be good to get your take on this, Mr. Stevens. It says, all terms and conditions of the ordinance, which is what we could approve, this agreement, meaning the proposed franchise agreement, and any amendment that may be enacted to either are considered material, and failure to perform any of the conditions by a company is considered a breach of this agreement. And should the company fail to perform any of the terms and conditions, county has the right to immediately terminate the agreement. Can you just kind of give me a sense of what you do on that, considering?
We drafted this jointly, and that was one of the terms that we got no real pushback on. And like Ms. O'Brien has said before, they're concerned about their permit with the state, but they're also concerned, in my opinion, about maintaining a relationship with us that's one of trust and faith. But as far as that goes, it gives us the right to terminate the agreement and end their franchise, which otherwise would be for the life of site. So we're not here negotiating these things on a regular basis, but having that clause in place gives us the assurance that we have the ability to come in and terminate the agreement if we know they're not living up to it.
But also that they're not living up to any term of the agreement.
Correct, yes.
You know, sometimes if the term of agreement, if a term in the agreement, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tired. If a term in the agreement is not material, then you wouldn't necessarily be able to terminate. You could sue for a breach and sue for damages, but the fact that every term is material means any breach of even a small term of this agreement means that we can terminate the agreement. Is that a fair assessment?
That is correct, yes.
And under the current Coble contract, they're not limited to 25 miles, is that correct? Given that they can have 25 customers from anywhere, any amount, anytime.
Yes, that's correct. So the term is 25 miles, but effectively, as long as there exists a grandfathered list of customers outside of that, that's changeable without notice to us as to the change, then effectively, there is no geographic limitation, in my opinion.
Excuse me, you go ahead.
Is this going to take away, if say they do their thing and this doesn't go to our landfill, is this going to take away the profits of our landfill? Because it's the one thing that actually makes a profit in this county.
I can't speak to that.
But I mean,
I'm not sure exactly.
But it sounds like it would. If they're not having all this to come in there, that would at least, can't count that anymore. It's a difference, you know?
I think in theory that's true, that if anything that goes there is not gonna go to our
Right.
landfill. That said, I'm not sure that's how we wanna make the profit on the
Well,
lower
I mean, I don't wanna
value
make profit
materials.
on trash at all.
Right.
I mean, I went somewhere today where I saw things are just dissolved, and my goodness, but,
Pam,
I don't know.
Pam, I've been working with Richard now for a long time here. So we're at record levels now, and we anticipate it continuing. And one of the things,
Record levels at what? Trash?
yes, coming already to the
Wow.
landfill. And our goal always has been, we're one of the few counties with a healthy landfill. There's plenty of counties that would love, and spend tons of money to ship it here. And we've been very restrictive on that, which is, again, a benefit. We have a lifetime on our landfill, which is good. And they're literally digging that other cell right now. I'm going to see it again tomorrow. So I don't think you have to worry about the landfill paying for itself. It's an enterprise fund. All the money it gets goes back into that landfill. That's what's very unique about an enterprise fund through the state. So the mantra up until this point has always been prolong the life of the landfill for the benefit of Alamance County citizens, that we have a landfill. If we don't have a landfill and you ship it somewhere else, I've been in a county where it's like that. The expenses are ridiculous. Or in New Hampshire County where they had an incinerator, it was $20 million a year that was on the taxpayers' back for that. So one of the things I saw when I got here was like, wow, you have a really healthy landfill with a long life. So it's a benefit of Alamance County for the citizens.
But
Just-
even with that, you do run out of space in a locked-in place, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And they have always been able to pay to expand themselves instead
Right.
of it costing. you know.
Absolutely. They haven't had to dip into the taxpayer. It's been self-funded for a very long time and anticipating to be so.
Yeah, okay, just
Okay,
asking.
Just want to help out.
Thank you.
One thing to think about too, like Bruce said, is that landfill space is not a perishable commodity. As long as it exists to be filled, it'll be filled at some point. The flow of trash may ebb and flow, but it's never going to stop.
Right.
So whether we fill that space now or whether we fill it next year over a longer period of time, it's going to be profit generated by the landfill at some point.
Where do the tonnage fees go?
Related to the Meridian
Right.
proposal, they would go into the county's general fund.
General fund, or would they go to the landfill fund?
No, they're not restricted to the landfill. That's a separate enterprise. They would go into the county's general fund.
Could they go to the landfill fund? Reason why they couldn't? Just a question.
No, it doesn't meet the definition of enterprise fund, which is self-generating because they're generated by an outside entity, so.
Guys, we're trying to increase the longevity of our very, very, very expensive lined landfill. And I don't care what you say, eventually it's gonna get full. And then what do we do?
Well, that would put,
Yeah.
my suggestion there was that would put more money into the landfill fund, which would enable us to have more money growing, to buy more land for the landfill that we have to operate, so. Just a thought.
Okay, anything else from this board? Do we?
Did we just buy? Didn't we just approve buying a couple acres for the landfill?
It was adjacent.
It's some
Last week, last meeting?
It was
Yeah.
adjacent to the
Some
landfill.
adjacent land to create a large buffer.
That's because we will eventually run out of lined landfill. Okay, I understand, Mr. Stevens, we have two issues, is that correct?
That's correct. I need 2 votes from the board. The first is going to be on the county's agreement to allow the sale of Coble landfill to Meridian, and I'll wait for the outcome of that.
All right. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Well, with no second, we're done.
I'll second.
Oh, I do have a second, sorry. Any further discussion?
Just one question. Just step back, just whatever. If we had zoning in this county, this might look differently, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Not today picking up zoning, but if we'd have had zoning.
I'm not sure in that the Coble landfill.
I mean, it's kind of
is
a broad.
grandfather.
I'm just talking about bringing something like this, like the rock quarry, like anything, which requires a big discussion. This comes
We
to the
have the
county
high
government. Yeah, well, I understand that, but I'm just saying, and I mean, I'm gonna say this. Meridian, you are as professional as they come. I don't have a doubt in you whatsoever. The Cobles, everybody in this whole situation is just of nothing but integrity. And everybody's doing the right thing. It's just how you feel personally of what your right thing is. And it concerns me that, we could be sitting here with not really people of integrity that could come in and, like a Mustang Ranch. I mean, you never know. It's just awful. I mean, who wants that? But I'm telling you, when we don't have that kind of power as a county government, we're gonna find ourselves in these kind of situations over and over again, and we're just very Thomas, I'm a commissioner, please let me finish. But I just want us to make sure that, we don't keep finding ourselves in these situations, because we're very lucky to have the people in this room that we're dealing with. That's the blessing in it all. It's just a personal decision on what each of us 5 want to agree to, so.
Okay, Mr. Stevens, would you state the motion that has been presented and second? There is a second.
Yes, so the motion on the floor is to allow and approve the allowance of the sale of Coble's Sandrock to Meridian North Carolina LLC, as is stipulated by the current franchise between the county and Coble's.
All right, and that's totally separate than the later contract.
Correct, yes.
All right. All those in favor of this sale signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Did you vote?
I voted aye.
No. So it's 3-2 to approve. All right, then the second,
Based on that vote, the second vote I need is for the approval of the ordinance that's in your packet, which would be the first of 2 readings and 2 votes on that ordinance to give a franchise and incorporating the agreement with Meridian to operate the current Coble site.
And we would bring this back at your next meeting for its second read and second vote.
but we still vote twice.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any further discussion on this contract?
Because I believe this contract is actually more restrictive than what Coble and Meridian have a right to do currently. Support.
And I just want to add that my decision has nothing to do with the folks at hand in this. I'm just going to side with the neighborhood and the traffic and the change to it. That's it. That is it. That is it. I don't have any doubts in anybody in this room. It's just my personal opinion. I don't want that kind of influx of more stuff in that very small community. We've seen what's happened with the rock quarry, and I mean, it's just life. It's what happens. It's business. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm going to have to side with the neighbors.
Any other comments? All in favor of the Meridian contract signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
How did you vote?
Aye.
All right. So we have 3-2, it passes again. You're too quiet over there. Okay, so both pass, and it will be back on our agenda in 2 weeks for the second reading.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President. Yep.
Thank you for everyone.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of understanding, we're talking about the Meridian franchise coming up for a second reading, correct? The first motion you had carried does not require a second reading.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is
Make sure
correct.
everybody understands. we're on
That's
the same
correct,
page.
yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, county attorney's report.
Nothing further from me. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. County manager,
Nothing to report, sir.
county commissioners. I'll just start down the line, Ms. Thompson.
I had a whole bunch, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to say anything. It's late and it's not on fire.
Thank you. Mr. Lashley.
Well, I can understand your sentiments, Ms. Thompson. But after our speakers tonight, I think it's imperative that I take some time here. The gentleman, Michael Cole, who accused me of raising his taxes. I have to make some assumptions here because he's not here, and I don't blame him at all by leaving. He said his taxes went up by $192. Not disputing that at all. My question to him was, and maybe if he hears this, he'll call me and we can talk about this, but I would just be curious to see how much, what his property was before and how much it was increased, because if his property went up 80%, that just tells me that he got, his wealth is 80% higher because of his reevaluation of his property. Now, to make an assessment on if that's a good number or a bad number, you'd have to take the 192 and divide it into how much more equity he has in his home, just to make a fair comparison to see if it's quite right.
There's also fire tax.
I beg your pardon?
Also, the fire taxes went up more than
Yes.
a revenue
yes.
neutral.
But that's why I asked him. I didn't know if his house is in Burlington, he got a 22% increase by the city council of Burlington. The Alamance County taxpayers, as far as their budget's concerned, I can let everybody in this room know, because even with the debacle with the school system that night, we still were able to have our budget come in under the rate of inflation. Take 203.5 and minus 214.5, you get 10 million divided by 211. There's your increase that you had from inflation. So that budget, I can understand where he's coming from completely, but I just want to know that there's a lot of factors involved that make that budget less. The county is spending less money because of the rate of inflation than it did the previous year. Just wanted that to be thrown out there. Heard something tonight about some. I think the gentleman's name was Barrett Brown. I just wanted my commissioners to realize that there's some things that you did not hear from him tonight, and he won't say it, because Mr. Brown has a situation and a problem like most of people who come from his ideology. They have what I like to call cultural dementia. That's the only way I can describe it. This group completely ignores the things and the failures that everyone can see in front of them, and then they make up successes that don't exist. And what I'm saying is that gentleman failed to tell you about charter schools. Charter schools are free to the public. There's just a different mechanism to get in those charter schools. You go through a lottery, and you can sign up just like everybody else can. And for example, you got Clover Garden and you have Rivermill. Clover Garden's going to have increased. The charter schools have already started. They started 2 weeks ago, but this particular gentleman who was talking about public education, he's just failing to see a lot of things that are right there in front of his face. And I suggest that Barrett Brown read the Stanford study. And anyone who hasn't read the Stanford study, I suggest you do. And if you do, you will actually see that charter schools are kicking the crap out of public schools. Why? Because public schools have a tendency to want to tell you what to think and not teach you how to think. They have, and that luxury is not given to charter school teachers. Charter school teachers, they don't have any problems with pay. There's no, they don't have, like Mr. Like we heard tonight, that we don't have, the charter schools don't have supplements. And they get along just fine. Have no issues whatsoever. So you have to ask yourself, why the difference? You have to ask yourself, why the difference? Why does charter schools have this easy path? And I have talked to a bunch of charter school teachers, and they don't have the nonsense that goes on in our public schools. And I have phone calls after phone calls, and I just want to let Mr. Barrett Brown know that there are 1,000 families in this county who want to get out of public education. They're not running away from public education because it's so daggum great. They're trying to get out of public education because they see that it does not provide the level of education they want their children to have. That is a fact, Jack. Everybody that I talk to want to pull their kids out of public education. That's the #1 reason. I am sick, and I heard this from a lady today, I am sick and tired of the schools thinking that my kid belongs to them. That kid does not belong to them. And I'd be dead gum if I'm going to let my kid go to that school if that's the way they think about my kid. They look at it. And the reason why you're getting some of the comments that you did tonight from a teacher, ABAE, well, I was told there was no union in the schools. But yet she tells me she's a representative of ABAE. Explain that to me. Now, I know she's just one person, but the fact of the matter is that's the road that she chose to go down. I just wanted to just make those comments about our teachers. And there was a gentleman tonight who said he was running for Congress. And I want to find out exactly what's going on in that library he was speaking about. Some of the things that he was talking about in that library should not be in that library or any other library. So I would really like for someone to show me how this is being changed. And I'm certainly hope that the folks that we put on that library committee tonight will step up and try to change this nonsense, because this does not make our community stronger. And I don't know if anyone's heard that gentleman who became an overnight sensation because he released a song, Oliver Anthony from Farmville, Virginia, one of the greatest patriots this country's ever seen, who actually told everyone, has a song about the plight of our country. And he hit it out of the park. And that's the reason why that he actually speaks about things that we actually see going on in our own community. And that library fiasco is one of them. That should not happen. That should not be the place that we in our take.
Mr. Turner,
Nothing for me, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carter.
I have to concur with some of what Mr. Lashley had to say pertaining to the comments on the impact on some of our citizens of the reval. I mean, we all struggled with that. And I think the hardest part for me is looking at it from the perspective of an increase in wealth. Yes. Part of the problem we have right now is you get an increase in wealth, where are you going to use it?
Yep.
If you sell it, what are you going to buy? Everything else has gone up too. We've had so many people make comments to the effect of, well, you raised it at the highest point. Folks, real estate values have gone up even more. And they're projected to go up even further. So, I think I made a comment in the last meeting. We've got 2 houses in our neighborhood right now under contract at asking price that went under contract before they were even, the signs even went up. I mean, it's It's nuts, but that's the reality we live in right now. We're required to do what we did. We had a little bit of choice over the timing, but we had to pull the trigger at one point. If we pulled the trigger a lot further ahead, then we understood what the impact was gonna be. But still, if you came in over 76% increase in your property tax, or in your market value, you were probably gonna see an increase no matter what we set the tax rate at, unless we put it below revenue neutral. We came in like 1.7%, I believe it was, over revenue neutral. That sound about right?
Close. It's close. Not quite that high, to be honest with you.
About 1.7% over revenue neutral. And, we struggled to get there. As Bill said earlier, inflation was a lot higher than that 1.7%. And everything you touch and everything we touch has gone up. You heard tonight about the project for the community college. I have been in the middle of working with them on that for almost a year and a half now. We have shuddered every time we got a number, because every piece of that those projects, all those projects have been going up. As you probably remember, we had to vote to move $1 million out of 2 satellite facilities to put back into the facilities we were trying to get done. And that's just one piece of it. There's not anybody out there working that doesn't try to get more money for what their labor involves. And we're facing that in every single department. Every single department. I mean, the sheriff himself talking to us again tonight about his shortages in staffing. And it's not just Alamance County, it's other counties as well, and law enforcement. But we're struggling to try and match what the neighboring agencies are doing so we can retain the people we have and try to fill in the holes we have in our staffing. So if anybody thinks it's easy to try and make these decisions, or feels like it's something that we don't care about, it doesn't affect us, they're blind. It does.
I just want to add something to that. I know I skipped, but I'm just going to say this. When I've gotten emails and you've gotten emails, and there are certain parts of this county that people are already barely making it, and their taxes went up. And they just, when we hear of single women who are widows who've sold their house and moved here to downsize, and now they're not sure on their fixed income if they can afford their downsize. It's just so wrong. It just is. And I know all the building, and I know every time I turn around, there's another piece of dirt that's got something built on it. And it's just so much. But I'm going to say this. I have voted for my last incentive for anybody that comes to this county. Because if I'm going to give them a break before I give the citizens in this county a break, I'm just not going to do it. I don't care, and I know that's the game, because that's the problem. There's always a game. And the people who pay the taxes pay for everything. And there's so many who don't pay squat. And that's what really hurts, because there's no balance in this. And I think the taxpayer is fed up with that. I work with the worst folks that struggle with stuff all the time with drug addiction and crime, and it's just constant drain, constant. And it affects families, it dissolves families, it does everything. Our kids, our juvenile crime, everything is off the chart. But I'm not going to sit here and watch Mr. Cole come up here and talk about how much his taxes went up. And I know you guys, we did as hard as we could, as much as we could. And it's just heartbreaking. There are things I wanted to fund that we could have said, forget it. But I don't want the county dealing with sexual assault and domestic violence. I sure don't want this team having to hold the hand of a rape kit at a victim at RMC, because nonprofits do the real grunt work in this community, and we need them, because we don't do that. But we can't keep raising taxes on folks who can't have their taxes raised because they're barely making it now. You know, I don't live in a giant house. I don't have a giant income. You know, Craig just retired, so all the whatever he made is gone. It's just what we get for retirement. and Social Security. So our lives have changed, and it's been a big hit for us. But, you know, as a county commissioner, you know, I had an appeal scheduled. We got an appeal time, and I didn't take it. How dare I come in here and want a deal whenever I voted for the tax rate? So it's kind of like, I'll run for office, but I won't run for Hypocrite of the Year. So I'm just, you know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to me. And yes, I am getting emotional, because if I'm not emotional, I'm going to be pissed. And you don't want to see me pissed, because I think our counties took a big hit. People, I look at how people have to donate, backpacks, all this stuff. I go, who the crap buys school supplies anymore? Does anybody buy their own school supplies? You know, what's going on? We are a hot mess, and it's not going to get better. And I just hate this. I hate this. I really hate this.
Well, the only problem with not voting for incentives.
I don't care. You can't tell me nothing. I'm not going to do it. I know, but I respect you, Steve. We're in the same Sunday school classroom, and we got to really behave to each other. Our pastor will take us outside. But I mean what I say, and I know that's the game, but I mean what I say.
The average household, and this was a 2009 study, the average tax dollar paid by a residential property owner in Alamance County was offset by their consumption of $1.40 in county services.
I understand.
Which means they weren't covering their own costs.
I understand.
The place we make up for that is in industry growth in the county. If we continue to grow 30 subdivisions plus like we are right now, and it's all residential, and all the apartments that are going up in the communities, if we continue that kind of growth and we don't support it with industrial growth, then we're going to face a higher tax rate for our citizens instead of a lower tax rate for our citizens.
I understand that, but I'm saying what I'm saying, I mean it. I'll have my little poster out front.
Okay,
I mean
guys,
it.
I'm the only one not to have spoken.
Well, I'm
now.
sorry, John. We just actually weren't through talking.
I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
I appreciate
All in
that.
favor? Aye.
Heaven forbid I finish a conversation for you.
Thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Commissioner meetings typically occur on the first and third Monday of each month in the Commissioners' Chambers at the County Office Building at 124 West Elm Street in Graham. The first Monday meeting begins at 9:30 a.m. and the third Monday meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. Changes to the meeting schedule will be posted on the county website at www.alamance-nc.com. The video of this meeting will be broadcast on LocalGov TV. Please go to www.localgovtvnc.com for more information about their schedule and to see more videos produced by your local governments. You can also access this meeting through our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Alamance County NC or by clicking the YouTube link on the county website. Technical questions regarding this meeting's broadcast or production may be sent to our county webmaster at webmaster@alamance-nc.com. This address is for technical questions only. Comments and questions about the content of this meeting may be made to the commissioners themselves. You can find their contact information at the Alamance County website at www.alamance-nc.com. There you can click on the link that says County Commissioners to learn more about the commissioners, read minutes and agendas of commissioner meetings, and find other information about the county commissioners. You can also send mail correspondence to County Commissioners, 124 West Elm Street, Graham, North Carolina 27253. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments.